Chapter 704. On the fourth unit side, Han Fei didn't see Bei Hua, Guan Xingyan, or Mu Jiaer, but Xie Qingqing, who had met a few times, was circling. Xie Qingqing was wearing a long, bright red dress, which swayed along with her body and spun around. Seeing Xie Qingqing, Han Fei tried to sneak away. However, Xie Qingqing shouted, "Han Fei, come here, come here." Han Fei was lost for words. Damn it, I shouldn't have spoken just now. Gritting his teeth, Han Fei walked to her and asked, "Sister Qingqing, what's your style?" Xie Qingqing stood straight and asked, "Do you think I look good?" Han Fei sweated. Yes, yes. Sister Qingqing, well, I'm in a hurry. I have to go. Xie Qingqing grabbed Han Fei. Wait a moment. You haven't even looked at me, and you're saying that I look good? Han Fei smiled awkwardly. Then I won't look at you. I know you look good, Sister Qingqing. Do I need to look at you? Anyone with a discerning eye knows. Xie Qingqing chuckled. Okay, I'll stop teasing you. What do you think of my dress? I sealed the sole with a fiery fish. However, I feel that the dress is a little too long. Do you think I should shorten it? Han Fei was lost for words. He thought to himself, you're going to the battlefield in a dress? Do you want to run naked just because you're enjoying the breeze? Han Fei said absent-mindedly, it'll look better if you cut it above your knees. Xie Qingqing thought for a moment and asked, wouldn't it be less defensive? Han Fei rolled his eyes. You're not going to the battlefield in this dress. Why do you care about defense? It's fine as long as it looks good. Lower the neckline. Perfect. Well, I'm really in a hurry. Xie Qingqing grabbed Han Fei. That does make sense. I'm a refiner, and I'm not going to the battlefield. TSK. You have good eyes. All right, Boss Bei Hua is in the refining hall. You can go. The refining hall? Uncle Bei Hua, do you still need to refine? Xie Qingqing remarked. Boss Bei Hua is exchanging refining experiences with several five-star refiners today. Xiao Guan and Jia are watching. You're out on a mission, so you don't know. Han Fei was stunned. A meeting of five-star refiners? Big Sister Qingqing, why don't you go? Xie Qingqing shrugged. It happens once every 3 months. I've been there several times. I don't understand, so I might as well not go. Han Fei immediately ran off. Sister Qingqing, I'm leaving. Bye. Xie Qingqing shook her head helplessly and muttered, even if I go, I won't understand. Shorten the skirt? It seemed like a good suggestion. Would it look bad if the neckline was too low? Give it a try. When Han Fei arrived at the refining hall, he was immediately recognized. Immediately, someone shouted, Master Han Fei, when are we going to refine? Do you still have one dragon? Someone chased after Han Fei and asked, Master Han Fei, let's not be greedy. A 20% discount is fine too. Were you going to hang up your stall? Han Fei rolled his eyes. Do you want to flip the cards? Han Fei immediately said, I've been really busy recently. Wait a moment, everybody. I'm going to lecture first. Getting rid of those people, Han Fei rushed to the shop assistant and threw 5 high-quality pearls at her. Where's the meeting of five-star refiners? The girl was stunned for a moment and asked in shock, Master Han Fei? Oh, it's in the number 8 refining room. There's someone waiting at the door. Han Fei turned around and ran to the refining hall. This time, on this trip, he truly understood how powerful a powerful weapon was. For example, Snowmorn, a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Han Fei felt that when he could use it freely one day, he wouldn't need to use his brain in a fight at all. Besides, was the semi-divine weapon that he had just gotten different from a divine weapon? Of course, he knew that it was a semi-divine weapon, but even though it was not a real divine weapon, it was still very powerful and much better than his other weapons. Also, the guy's golden battle suit and harpoon were really strong. If he hadn't crushed it, he wouldn't have been able to defeat it. At the door of the number 8 refining room, 2 dignified 2-star refiners were watching at the door. They were both in their early 20s. When Han Fei strode over, the 2 of them were stunned. Stop, what are you doing? Han Fei was stunned for a moment and quickly took out his 3-star refiner certificate. Okay, I'm going to the lecture. This. At the door, the 2 refiners looked at each other in bewilderment. A 3-star refiner? Han Fei asked, can I go in now? One of them immediately smiled and said, yes, of course. Please come in. After Han Fei stepped in, the other person immediately asked, Who is this? Why haven't we seen such a young, 3-star refiner before? Have you forgotten the newcomer a while ago? The one who claims to be a one-stop shop for refining and spirit sealing and offers a 30% discount every day. It's him? Han Fei. Of course. Guan Qingyan and Mu Jia are already inside. Now, another young one has popped up. Who else can it be but Han Fei? TSK. This guy is truly ruthless. I'm told that he only takes 2 sets of materials and offers a 30% discount. Even those with a low success rate dare not do that. Hee. Not just that. Even 4-star refiners dare not do that sometimes. If they don't take enough materials and make a mistake, or if the spirit sealing isn't done well, their reputation will be tarnished. While the 2 refiners clicked their tongues in amazement, Han Fei had already appeared in the refining room. After a glance, Han Fei saw 100 people gathered here. Because the refining room itself wasn't large, the number 8 refining room was only about 300 square meters. He couldn't even see the hundreds of people in the room. Voices came out of the room. Beihua said, So, when we refine ultra-quality spiritual weapons, there's still a lot of details that we can improve. Those details are necessary for you to be promoted to 4-star refiners. A middle-aged man next to him smiled. Master Beihua is right. It's almost impossible for a 3-star refiner to refine a divine weapon. However, let me make it clear to all of you that there is a chance of becoming a 4-star blacksmith. Even if they can't be refined into a divine weapon, they can at least push ultra-quality spiritual weapons to a new height. An old man smiled. That's right. This is the semi-divine weapon that we often talk about. It's a semi-divine weapon. In fact, it's infinitely close to a divine weapon, but it can't be turned into a divine weapon because of the poor quality of the materials. We've discussed this question countless times. However, recently, I'm told that Guan Qingyan, a genius refiner, has made a semi-divine weapon. Guan Qingyan, what do you think? Guan Qingyan rose and took out a shield. I sealed a level 47 mutant silver-scaled fish in this shield. I've done my best on the spiritual weapon itself, and I've tried my best to seal creatures. However, it's still an ultra-quality spiritual weapon. So, I thought of the enhancement of arrays. But I've experimented many times, and the enhancement of a single array can only make the ultra-quality spiritual weapon slightly more powerful, but not enough to make it into an ultra-quality spiritual weapon. So, I asked an array master to carve 9 serial defense arrays on it. When the arrays are carved, the semi-divine weapon will be ready. Wow, someone was startled. 9 interlocking arrays will do. Guan Qingyan nodded. Yes, 9. Someone said, That's not right. We've also made arrays. Not to mention 9, we've even tried a dozen arrays, but no semi-divine weapon has ever been produced. Guan Qingyan nodded. It's not a set of arrays, it's a serial array. The 9 arrays are combined into one, but it's actually just one array. Someone sighed. Guan, which array master did you find to make this? Guan Qingyan shook his head. I can't say. Someone asked, How many such array masters do we have on the Scattered Stars Island? Guan Qingyan nodded. No more than 5. Immediately, someone was discouraged. That's useless. There are no more than 5 in the entire Scattered Stars Island. He must be an array master. Guan Qingyan nodded. It's useful. When I was discussing arrays with Han Fei proposed a theory called replication. It means to use a single serial array as a template. If you remember this array, you can always make exactly the same weapon. As long as you can make one, you can make many. Someone exclaimed, So, in fact, we only need to remember one array, and we can make many identical semi-divine weapons. Someone sighed. So, the key to making semi-divine weapons is not us refiners, but array masters? No. While everyone was discussing fervently, they suddenly heard a voice from above their heads. Everyone's first reaction was, Why is there someone above their heads? Then they all looked up, only to see a spider-like guy hanging on the ceiling and crawling forward. Han Fei took out a hand and said, Old Guan, there's something wrong with this method. I've tried it. He came up with this method from old Jiang when he was refining the Overlord. However, He had tried it several times and found that the replication array didn't work. Guan Xinyan's eyes lit up when he saw Han Fei. Brother Han, you came at the right time. Why doesn't this method work? Many people were stunned and looked up at the ceiling. Is this Han Fei, the genius refiner? Is it true that this guy became a 3-star refiner faster than Guan Xingyan? Why is he hanging on the ceiling? Han Fei simply jumped down from the ceiling and dashed over. Old Guan, have you made a second one? Guan Xingyan frowned. Not yet. It's not easy to find a creature with a sealed spirit. Han Fei patted his shoulder. That's right. It's not easy to make a second one. Bei Hua and the other old men couldn't help but say, Han Fei, we've considered your idea, and it's indeed feasible. We never thought of merging arrays before, so we never made semi-divine weapons. However, the first semi-divine weapon made of ultra-quality materials has already been made. Han Fei waved his hand. Uncle Bei Hua, there's actually a problem. I've tried it, and there's only one way to successfully replicate it. Nothing else works. Bei Hua asked, what is it? Guan Xingyan asked, what is it? Everyone asked, what is it? The 7th watch, it's the 7th watch today. I'm drinking now. Congratulations, everyone. May the purple air come from the east, and the neon lights rise outside the window in the coming year. May you drink to your heart's content, and be at peace with the world. I wish you all eternal youth and a carefree and unfettered time of warmth. I wish all of you, your eyes are bright, and the road ahead is without wind and waves. I wish all of you, the lights are waning, and the beauties will hold hands and grow old together. May flowers bloom in the coming year and smile at the world. May you stay in bed because it's cold outside and pneumonia is dangerous. Where are the tickets? Although it's only 7, there will be more tomorrow. I've handed in the tickets. I should be drinking now, going home to sleep, and continuing to write at night. End of this chapter. Chapter 705. Han Fei shook his head. Since when was Guan Xingyan so impatient? At first, he was the one who proposed the concept of array fusion. Han Fei said with a bitter smile, you might not believe it if I tell you. That is, you can simply set up an array when you're crafting an ultra-quality spiritual weapon. However, once the spiritual weapon is crafted, it's completely different to set up an array. Guan Xingyan asked, you've tried it? How did it work? Han Fei asked, did the array master you found set up the array on his own and didn't explain it to you? Guan Xingyan's face slightly changed. Yes, that's true. Bei Hua asked, why not? What's the logic? Han Fei said, to set up the array, I need to understand the characteristics of the spiritual weapons materials. When I draw the array, I need to adjust the strength and method of the array with my own feelings. So, the array master can draw it, but we can't duplicate it. Guan Xingyan asked eagerly, Brother Han, have you figured out a solution? Han Fei waved his hand. I may have to learn arrays first. Also, the smaller the weapon, the more difficult it will be to draw an array. The shield is so big that it's easy to draw it, but it's difficult to draw a sword or a knife. Guan Xingyan nodded. Of course. Muja suddenly said, can't we first draw a fusion chain formation, then refine it with top-grade materials, and then fuse it into the weapon? Can't we use the array as a material and refine it with the spirit refining technique? Han Fei, however, was refreshed. Shoot, that's right. Why didn't I think of that? Guan Xingyan also shivered. This method may work. Bei Hua and the other 2 5-star refiners changed their expressions and looked at each other. This guy was truly a genius. He wasn't called a genius refiner for nothing. His way of thinking was beyond anyone's imagination. What kind of a genius refiner was it to craft something as intangible as an array with tangible materials? Bei Hua suddenly rose. Okay, everybody, today's meeting is over. We'll tell you the result after we have an experiment. Let's go. Immediately, a refiner asked, Master Bei Hua, are we going to experiment now? Can we stay and observe? Before Bei Hua said anything, the oldest refiner had already berated him. You'll only affect the experiment if there are so many people here. If this method succeeds, you will definitely be notified. Han Fei was stunned. Hey, weren't they supposed to be in class? How did it end? Bei Hua glanced at Han Fei casually. It's already over. After that, we'll talk about the refining method of semi-divine weapons. Han Fei. After everybody left, Beihua finally said, Han Fei, aren't you on a mission? Why are you back so soon? My mission is over. Didn't he hear that there was going to be an exchange meeting here? So I came. Beihua introduced. Now that you're here, let me introduce you. This is Li Feiyun, the head of the refining hall in the fragmentary star city, a 5-star blacksmith. Han Fei cupped his fists. Nice to meet you, senior. The middle-aged man next to Beihua nodded at Han Fei casually. Young man, you're smart. Very good. Beihua continued. This is Wang Su, a 5-star blacksmith in charge of the refining halls in the north, south, east, and west. He's also my teacher. Han Fei said, Nice to meet you, Grandpa. Wang Su scratched his beard and smiled. I'm told that you became a 3-star blacksmith in only 1 month. You're very talented. It'll be a great achievement if you can solve the problem of semi-divine weapons. Try your best. Han Fei suddenly asked, Seniors, wouldn't it be faster and more efficient if you do it on your own? Beihua shook his head. We're actually already capable of refining semi-divine weapons. However, even if we do it, it's only because of the materials and the creatures sealed in them, so it's not really a breakthrough. Right now, there are a few 5-star blacksmiths on the Scattered Stars Island. We can't give the methods of 5-star blacksmiths to 3-star blacksmiths. That's meaningless. They won't be able to refine what they're supposed to. Wang Su nodded. That's right. It's really up to you to finish it. If you can do it, most 3-star blacksmiths can too. Li Yunfei also said, Let's just wait and see how it turns out. Beihua, they're all your men. We'll leave them alone for now. Beihua nodded with a smile and saw them out. Mu Jia said, Liar, I heard that you went to the deep sea. Did you fight? Like last time? Han Fei was lost for words. Don't call me a liar. What did I lie to you about? Mu Jia pouted. I like it. That's what I call you. You're my senior sister. Han Fei ignored her and looked at Guan Qingyan. Old Guan, when did you refine a semi-divine weapon? Not bad. Guan Qingyan shook his head casually. I didn't refine a semi-divine weapon. It only appeared when the array was branded on the shield. Beihua, on the other hand, looked at Han Fei weirdly when he came in. Are you really here for the conference? Han Fei grinned. Oh, by the way, I brought back a weapon. Then, Han Fei took out the golden harpoon and knocked it on the ground. He knocked on the ground, and immediately a wave of air rippled out. In fact, Han Fei had a battle suit and a harpoon, but nobody knew it. Han Fei couldn't tell them. Mu Jia exclaimed, Ah, is this a semi-divine weapon used by a half-mermaid heavenly talent? Guan Qingyan hurried over. Did you snatch a semi-divine weapon? For a moment, Mu Jia and Guan Qingyan's eyes were all focused on Han Fei's golden harpoon. For some reason, there was no data in Han Fei's eyes. Therefore, he couldn't see the information of this weapon. A semi-divine weapon was indeed a semi-divine weapon, but only in battle would he find that even he had to unleash his full strength to resist it. Han Fei wondered if it was a semi-divine weapon, which couldn't be fully controlled by a hanging fisher. Therefore, in the hands of the half-mermaids, it didn't show any amazing power. Otherwise, even 1% of the power of a sea-quelling bizarre treasure would be terrifying. Beihua said, It's indeed a semi-divine weapon, a standard semi-divine weapon made by sea demons. The three of them immediately looked up at Beihua. Guan Qingyan asked, Standard? Is it mass-produced? The power of this weapon is indeed terrifying. I guess the half-mermaids can't exert their full power, right? Beihua nodded. It should be. In fact, we've looted a lot of golden battle suits and golden harpoons. At first, we thought they were divine weapons, but when we reforged them, we found that they were not divine weapons, but semi-divine weapons. Besides, every one of them is made in the same way, which means that the sea demons have mastered the way to mass-produce semi-divine weapons. Han Fei asked, Mass production? Beihua said with a smile, Even if it's mass production, it's still a semi-divine weapon. After all, it's beyond the boundary of ultra-quality spiritual weapons and can already be called divine weapons. However, it's not as good as a low-quality divine weapon. Han Fei thought for a moment. The Overlord was a semi-divine weapon. He had plagiarized Mu Jia-er's idea, combined it with old Zhang's method of drawing arrays, and sealed the Blood Fiend octopus in it, making the Overlord a real semi-divine weapon. This was also one of Han Fei's important trump cards. Han Fei sighed. If only we knew how to mass-produce them. Otherwise, we can only loot more for our own use. Guan Qingyan said, it can't be used directly. We need to reforge it. Han Fei was stunned. Why? Isn't it a semi-divine weapon? Mu Jia mocked. It's a weapon of sea demons after all. Their refining method is completely different from ours. Besides, the sea demons' weapons are not only used with spiritual energy, but also with demonic qi. How can you use it without demonic qi? Han Fei asked in surprise, is that so? Beihua nodded. Yes, we don't know the refining method of sea demons. If we want to use it, we can only reforge it. After all, the materials are still the same. However, if we reforge it, it will become an ultra-quality spiritual weapon. Han Fei was speechless. It will be downgraded? Mu Jia nodded. Of course. After all, the materials used to forge this golden weapon are only mixed with some ultra-quality materials, not all divine weapon materials. If we reforge it badly, it will certainly be downgraded. Han Fei was speechless. He had been so happy for a long time. He had hidden his set, but now it seemed that he had to reforge it. However, Han Fei thought for a moment. It wasn't troublesome to reforge it. If he couldn't reforge it, he could just give it to the demon purification pot. In the future, if he mastered the fusion method of the chain formation, it should not be a big problem to refine semi-divine weapons. Han Fei came here full of interest, but after getting the exact answer, he lost interest. Anyway, he didn't have the ability to refine semi-divine weapons now. However, he had obtained the ocean book. This thing was a treasure. If he studied it carefully, he would definitely make great progress on the path of arrays. Besides, he was very busy now. In addition to the ocean book, he also had to study the soul-splitting technique. In terms of quality, the soul-splitting technique was much better than the great soul attachment technique he got from the undersea city. The great soul attachment technique had many disadvantages. After all, it was only a heaven-level, mid-quality weapon, and one's soul might be destroyed. But this soul-splitting technique was different. It was a heaven-level, divine-quality weapon. It wasn't just a little bit higher. It felt like it was just short of having an immortal soul. Learning about semi-divine weapons, Han Fei immediately said, well, Uncle Beihua, you go ahead. I have something else to do. I'm leaving. Guan Qingyan hurriedly shouted, Brother Han, should we study the method of refining semi-divine weapons? After all, Jia made an excellent suggestion. Han Fei patted Guan Qingyan's shoulder, only to get his hand covered in frost. Old Guan, what's wrong with you? It's so cold. Guan Qingyan said solemnly, it's just the technique I practice. It's fine. Han Fei said, anyway, Mu Jia has put forward her idea. Why don't you try it yourself? You can try it first. Let me know if you succeed. I'm a little busy now. See you. Chapter 706. After leaving the refining hall, Han Fei contacted Lu Rinquang and the others as soon as possible. During this period, he often went to old Zhang's place. It seemed that they hadn't met for a while. Quang Quang, are you there? After waiting for a while, there was no response. Han Fei thought this guy must be out on a mission. Xiaobai, are you off today? After calling them, Han Fei remembered that Luo Xiaobai seemed to have also gone out on a mission. Zhang Xuanyu was running around now, and Xia Xiaochan shouldn't be on holiday yet. Forget it. Let's go back to refine semi-divine weapons first. Han Fei's base was still on the skeleton shore. However, he didn't care much about it now. After the last batch of ultra-quality spiritual weapons was refined, almost everyone in the 8th Battalion had an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed spirit. Besides, after such a long time, everyone's debts had almost been paid off. He might have to start a new round of refining activities. While controlling the fishing boat to fly back, Han Fei secretly prepared to go back and take a look first. Was there anything in the sea swallowing seashells of the two dead half-mermaids? Oh no! Suddenly, Han Fei was dumbfounded. He didn't have many ultra-quality spiritual stones left. Han Fei immediately slapped his thigh. In recent months, in order to make money and refine, he had spent a lot of spiritual energy. This time, the trip to the snow god's temple almost consumed the spiritual spring and spiritual stones stored in Forge the Universe. At this moment, there were only 10 ultra-quality spiritual stones left, which added up to only 10 million points of spiritual energy. Han Fei immediately slapped his thigh. Damn it, I've spent too much spiritual energy recently. No, I can't just think about refining to make money. I have to save some spiritual energy. Han Fei immediately took out a spiritual fruit and stuffed it into his mouth. Although there were only 10 ultra-quality spiritual stones left, he still had about 18,000 spiritual fruits. Among them, energy fruits accounted for about 1/3. The rest were basically ordinary spiritual fruits and a small number of spiritual fruits that could increase spiritual power. In this way, he still had 800 million points of spiritual energy. However, there were two ways to use spiritual fruits. One was to take them orally, which had to be digested and absorbed. In the long run, it was good for one's body. The other way was to crush them directly and let the spiritual energy disperse or overflow. Such violence had its drawbacks. The first drawback was that he couldn't nourish himself with spirit fruits, which was a huge loss. One had to know that spiritual fruits not only contained spiritual energy, but also had many other effects. For example, it could increase one's blood qi, increase one's mental power, strengthen one's physique, increase one's strength, etc. Secondly, the turbulent spiritual energy was not easy to control. If he couldn't even control it when the spiritual qi was rampaging, how could he forge it? With his current swallowing ability, he could probably eat 50 at a time before he couldn't eat anymore. Moreover, he needed to rest for 2 to 3 days. Otherwise, the various types of spiritual energy in his body would fluctuate, and the gains would not make up for the losses. Baji, he will more calm down. When Han Fei arrived at the skeleton shore, he was greeted by hundreds of fishing boats. The leader was none other than Cao Qiu. When Cao Qiu saw Han Fei, he immediately raised his hand and shouted, "Han Fei, you're back." Han Fei flew closer and saw that many people on the 100 fishing boats behind Cao Qiu were crying. He couldn't help but ask, "What's going on? There's a war?" Han Fei thought, "That's not right. If there's a war, can Cao Qiu fight in person?" Cao Qiu scratched his head and chuckled. "Well, I just went out to test the poison." Han Fei's eyelids twitched. "Do so many people need to test the poison?" Immediately, someone said, "Alas, this test has turned our skeleton shore into a forbidden land." Wu Xiaoxiao's fishing boat flew over. "Captain, you're finally back?" Han Fei was confused. "Wait, what do you mean by turning the skeleton shore into a dangerous place?" Wu Xiaoxiao said to him telepathically, "Captain, you'd better not go out. Deputy Captain Chao has made a breakthrough in making poisons recently. He has just developed the enhanced version of Poison God. He threw it into the sea and it stretched for more than 2,000 meters, killing all marine creatures. In the end, the poison was washed to the beach by the waves, killing a large number of ordinary creatures on the beach." This, Han Fei looked at Cao Qiu in shock. "Poison God enhanced version? How is it enhanced?" Cao Qiu said awkwardly, "Well, I accidentally developed a contagious poison. I tested it just now and couldn't control it. However, listen to me, this poison was made by accident, and its effect will decline. In 1 day at most, the skeleton shore will become a normal skeleton shore." Han Fei raised his eyebrows and asked, "How much do you have left?" Cao Qiu frowned. "Well, I really don't have much left." Han Fei asked, "How about 100 kilograms first?" Cao Qiu's face changed drastically. "I don't even have 100 kilograms myself. I only made about 30 kilograms in total. I just used 10 kilograms. Han Fei's expression changed, and he immediately said to everyone, "Everyone, it's okay. The sea can purify poisons. Let's take a day off." After that, They returned to the camp, and Han Fei took Chao Chiu to a corner where there was no one. After exploring the snow god's temple this time, Han Fei knew the importance of Poison God. With Poison God, he killed 2 half-mermaid heavenly talents almost effortlessly, which showed the power of Poison God. Han Fei said, "Come on, give me half of it." Chao Chiu hesitated. "I still needed to study the poison formula." Han Fei put his arm around Chao Chiu's shoulder. "You can study it. You know I'm risking my life outside. I can exchange it with you." Chao Chiu immediately said, "I'll exchange 500 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid with you." Han Fei pushed Chao Chiu away and stared at him blankly. "Chao Chiu, you've changed." Chao Chiu's face was black. "I once lent you 2 peak-level hidden fissures and gave you a lot of Poison God and Poison King." Han Fei chuckled. "That's all in the past. Why are we mentioning it again? Besides, last time, I gave you some spirit awakening fluid afterward. I exchanged it with credit points. Besides, last time, I did it to save the skeleton shore and you. Otherwise, think about it. If the sea demons attack, how can the skeleton shore withstand it?" Chao Chiu rolled his eyes. "I won't be fooled now. It's too difficult to get credit points. They won't buy it if I sell it to them privately. There are many good things that can't be bought with high-quality pearls. You can give me credit points." Han Fei immediately stepped forward and patted Chao Chiu on the shoulder. "I suddenly found that I don't need it for the time being. Take your time to make the antidote. When I have money, I'll buy it from you." Chao Chiu, this time, it was Chao Chiu's turn to panic. "You don't want it? You don't want my Poison God enhanced version?" Chao Chiu immediately said, "I can give you less credit points. I think you should try the Poison God enhanced version. It's much more powerful than before." Han Fei patted Chao Chiu on the shoulder. "It's okay. I'm content. I still have some Poison God, which I can use first. I don't think I'll go to sea in a short time. So, when I need to go to sea, I'll buy it from you. Bye." Han Fei slipped away with a swish, leaving Chao Chiu alone where he was. Han Fei muttered as he ran, "Are you kidding me? Do you want me to buy it with credit points? Do you think I got my credit points?" Han Fei slipped into his treehouse and then set up a concealment array, a stealth array, a defense array. After swallowing more than 30 spiritual fruits in a row, Han Fei looked at his data. Owner Han Fei, level greater than 44. Intermediate hanging fisher. Spiritual energy 256 6655 11228. Spiritual power 178-21799. Perception range greater than 17,999 meters. Spiritual heritage level 5. High quality spiritual beast twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish level 38. Main art void breaking technique. Volume 4 of Void Fishing, Demon Level, Divine Quality. Han Fei couldn't help feeling a little regretful. Recently, he had been busy refining and learning arrays, and his upper limit of spiritual energy and spiritual power had hardly improved. Besides, he was now an intermediate hanging fisher. He had to find a way to deduce the 5th level of Void Fishing. If he guessed right, after a level 7 spiritual heritage, there would be a qualitative change. It was a pity that he couldn't reach a level 7 spiritual heritage during this period of time, because the 6th level of Void Fishing seemed to only be available in the Thousand Star City. But a level 6 spiritual heritage was not bad. However, to make a breakthrough, he had to save a lot of spiritual energy first. If he ate 50 spiritual fruits every 3 days, it would take him nearly 3 months to save 100 million points of spiritual energy. He could eat 20 spiritual fruits a day, so that he could eat 60 spiritual fruits every 3 days, which could shorten the time to 10 or 20 days. Immediately, Han Fei decided that he had to find a place in the sea to make a breakthrough in at most 3 months. It was unlikely to happen on the Scattered Stars Island. There were too many strong masters, and once the world changed, it would be easy to catch them. At that time, the consequences would be unpredictable. However, before that, he had to turn those semi-divine weapons into real semi-divine weapons today. However, Han Fei wondered if the 3 semi-divine weapons could be smelted into a divine weapon. But on second thought, Han Fei immediately gave up. Semi-divine weapons were already rare, and having a divine weapon might be coveted by others. A semi-divine weapon should be acceptable. Immediately, Han Fei threw the golden harpoon into the demon purification pot. Chapter 707. The demon purification pot only needed to use his brain to refine weapons. Whatever he wanted to refine, he could refine it into whatever he wanted. All he had to do was to throw spiritual energy into it. The first thing that Han Fei thought of was to refine the water-dividing seal first. The water-dividing seal had been broken earlier. This fully showed that in front of a heavenly talent, even an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed soul was still not good enough. The water-dividing seal was a powerful weapon, but the water-stirring seal technique was a bit lousy. Besides, Han Fei felt that the water-stirring seal technique wasn't powerful enough. He had to go to the logistics division and get a new powerful seal technique to deduce. In the demon purification pot, a harpoon was refined into a big seal, and the materials were being crazily compressed. The seal had to be small and could be clasped in one hand. When the battle skill was used, it could become very large, and it could be thrown out very heavily to smash people. After a while, Han Fei took a deep breath. The reserve of spiritual energy had been consumed by 2 million points. This small seal slowly flew out of the demon purification pot like a girl in a boudoir. In Han Fei's eyes, information popped up. Name, Golden Seal, Introduction, a weapon made of red sun mystic crystal, weighing 88,000 kilograms. It contains the sharpness of gung metal and can pierce through armor at extreme speed. Quality, semi-divine weapon, attached soul, none, recastable, unrefined. Note: due to the limited forging materials, it can be cast into a semi-divine weapon at most. Han Fei weighed the golden seal and felt it was a bit light. Sure enough, it's no match for the embroidery needle. It's only 88,000 kilograms. However, it's a semi-divine weapon anyway, and its quality should be excellent. After all, such a large harpoon is only half the size of a palm after being refined into a seal. Putting away the golden seal, Han Fei found that he only had more than 560,000 points of spiritual energy left, which was not enough to refine another semi-divine weapon. He wasn't in a hurry. After eating fruits for a few days, he could continue refining. The next day, after practicing the 108 Desolate God Body, Han Fei found that there were 2 million more points on his waist tag. Now he had more than 16 million points. At the bottom of the waist tag, there were 4 words Guardian of the Sea. Above the words, there was a small double cross with the number 30 next to it. Also, after these words appeared on the waist tag, Han Fei found that the waist tag had a faint milky luster. As it happened, Yuling Yun, Wu Xiao, and the others were walking to them. Wu Xiao said, "Captain, it's our turn to work today. Since you're not here, our team has always been led by Vice Captain Xiao. However, Vice Captain Xiao was always researching poisons and didn't have time to go out to sea with us. Therefore, the 4 of us usually go by ourselves." Han Fei nodded. "It's okay. Judging from Yuling Yun's aura, she should be close to becoming an intermediate hanging fisher, right? Are you going to break through in the next few days?" Yuling Yun nodded. "Yes, I'll make a breakthrough in 3 days at most." Han Fei smiled. "When you make a breakthrough, I will give you the position of captain. When the time comes, we'll recruit another person." Yuling Yun's face slightly changed, but Wu Xiao simply grabbed Han Fei's clothes and said coquettishly, "Captain, are you going to abandon us?" Han Fei quickly pulled his clothes back. "Don't talk to me like this. I'm too busy," Wu Xiao asked. "But being a scout is your main profession, Captain, isn't it?" Han Fei simply changed the topic. "Hey, do you know why the waist tag is glowing?" Everybody finally noticed Han Fei's waist tag. They all gasped. Gu Daliang asked in shock, "Captain, what did you do?" Han Fei scratched his head. "Huh?" Lung Hui explained. "The honor of the Guardian of the Sea can only be obtained with great contributions." Yuling Yun added, "You can't get the title of honor in a regular defensive battle. You can't get it unless you have made great contributions in a large-scale defensive battle. Or something big that we don't know." Then, Yuling Yun and the others all stared at Han Fei. Han Fei came back to himself. Hey, actually it's nothing. I just proposed the possibility of refining a semi-divine weapon. I haven't refined it yet. A semi-divine weapon. They were all shocked. An ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed soul was already extremely rare. Under normal circumstances, it was only possible for those with 4 stars to get one. But how long had it been since their captain joined? In the blink of an eye, he had become a 4-star. In the blink of an eye, he had become a refiner. In the blink of an eye, he could even get an honorary title. He certainly couldn't tell you Ling Yun and the others about the treasure trove and the battle in the Heaven-Human Canyon. Han Fei couldn't help but smile. It's nothing. Let's go. Let's go patrol. It's been a long time since we last went to investigate. Right, Wu Xiao? Have you changed your technique? Wu Xiao was amused. I've changed it for 2 months. Oh, really? Practice hard and try to become an intermediate hanging fisher as soon as possible. Your breakthroughs are too slow. Look at me. I'm already an intermediate hanging fisher. Wu Xiao rolled her eyes. I don't want to compete with you. In the sky above the skeleton shore, Han Fei sensed for a moment. There are very few creatures today. Ling Yun added, they were poisoned yesterday. Han Fei chuckled. How could they be so poisoned? Were they all poisoned? Wu Xiao nodded. Believe it. Captain Chao's poison is really terrifying. Those creatures all fought and bit each other. In the end, a large area of them was poisoned, and they were running everywhere. Didn't you see that nobody was scavenging on the skeleton shore today? Han Fei frowned. Is it really that powerful? Lung Hui explained. All the poison creatures are spreading the poison. However, it seems that the more it spreads, the less toxic it is. However, the symptoms are similar to the poison god. Han Fei couldn't help but feel a little creeped out. No wonder Xiao raised the price. It turned out that he had developed an extremely powerful poison. No, he had to find a way to see if he could get some of the new poison god when he was free. 2 hours passed. Han Fei said, forget it. There are few creatures today. I haven't seen a single exotic creature. Let's go back. Gu Daliang added, exotic creatures are actually quite rare. Han Fei was lost for words. Why are you still undermining me? Han Fei said thoughtfully, Daliang, you're just too straightforward. Logically speaking, an honest person should be able to cultivate very quickly. Look at you. Do you have all the weapons in your armor box? Han Fei was about to trick Gu Daliang into buying on credit when he saw a fishing boat flying over quickly in the sky. He took a closer look. Wasn't that Luren Quang? Han Fei immediately waved his hand. Quang, how did you find the time to come to my place? I went to your place yesterday, but you were not there. However, when Luren Quang came to him, Han Fei found that something was wrong. Under normal circumstances, Luren Quang was always smiling. When he was with Han Fei, he would always be naughty and then discuss what to eat. But this time, Luren Quang looked extremely awful and even a little flustered. Han Fei's face sank. What's wrong? What happened? Luren Quang's lips trembled. Do not get too excited. Maybe it's not that serious. Han Fei immediately became serious. You're already so flustered, and it's not serious? On the side, Ling Yun and the others clearly felt that something was wrong with Han Fei. A kind of pressure was taking shape. Han Fei was just an intermediate hanging fisher. How could he make them feel such a terrifying pressure? Han Fei asked, tell me, what happened? You're here, but Zhang Xuanyu, Luo Xiaobai, and Xia Xiaochan are not here. Suddenly, Han Fei's body trembled. Liang Tian said that Luo Xiaobai actually joined the Scattered Stars First Unit. Besides, she was involved in some operation. Han Fei asked angrily, did something happen to Luo Xiaobai? Luren Quang shook his head quickly. Not Xiaobai. Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief, but then he took a deep breath. If it weren't for Luo Xiaobai, Zhang Xuanyu would be fine now that he was in the patrol team. Only Xia Xiaochan could go out at any time. Bam! Spiritual energy burst out from Han Fei. Did something happen to Xia Xiaochan? Luren Quang said in a panic. Don't get too excited. Maybe she'll be back soon. The wind god boat appeared in the sky. Luren Quang recalled his boat and jumped on the wind god boat. Wait a minute. Don't get too excited. Han Fei glanced at Yu Ling Yun and the others. You can go back on your own. Leng Hui simply controlled the boat to leave quickly and disappear into the sky. Wu Xiaoxiao sighed. Hey, why are you leaving so fast? Chances are that the captain needs our help. Leng Hui said casually, we can't help. Wu Xiaoxiao asked, how do you know? Didn't you see how terrifying the captain has become? Leng Hui said, those who can stay with the captain can't be weak. Do you think the four of us can beat the captain together? Wu Xiaoxiao added, but we can still contribute to the team. Leng Hui shook his head. We'll only hold him back. Don't forget that the captain has seniors on the Scattered Stars Island. Yiling Yu nodded. That's right. I don't think we can help at all if we go there. On the other side, Han Fei held back his fury and said coldly, how can they be missing? Doesn't the Dark Hunter Legion hunt in groups? Tell me everything first. Seeing that Han Fei calmed down, Luren Kuang finally said, here's the thing. I received a mission today to deliver assets, which happened to be Xia Xiaochan's Dark Hunter Legion. It was a lot of spirit awakening fluid. I accidentally overheard that Xia Xiaochan might be ill. Then, after I asked, I learned that Xia Xiaochan left the team and went missing. Han Fei asked, did you send someone to look for her? Lu Renkuang replied, they refused to tell me. Han Fei frowned and his lips twitched. You didn't tell me about our relationship? If worst comes to worst, we can expose the Thug Academy. Lu Renkuang said, I did, but they kicked me back. Han Fei's eyelids cramped. Son of AB *TCH, when did this happen? Lu Renkuang said, just now. The assets must have just been delivered back to the logistics division. I came to you after learning the news. Han Fei clenched his fists, narrowed his eyes, and took a deep breath. If I go to the Dark Hunter Legion and ask them, will they talk to me? Lu Renkuang said, I'm afraid not. The Dark Hunter Legion has always been secretive and won't tell anyone. Han Fei's lips shivered. Let's go. To the Empyrean Waterfall. The third update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 708. When he heard that Xia Xiaochan was missing, Han Fei was furious. Xia Xiaochan once said that the Dark Hunter Legion was actually not that dangerous, and the Dark Hunter Legion usually hunted in groups. If this was the case, then Xia Xiaochan would definitely have a lot of companions when carrying out missions. What made him angry was that those people were still transporting supplies when Xia Xiaochan was missing. Lu Renkuang had told him everything, but the other party still refused to tell him. That was too much. Originally, the moment Han Fei closed his eyes, the first thing he thought of was to find Jiang Qin or Old Jiang. However, on second thought, Old Jiang and Jiang Qin should be living in seclusion here. Once Old Jiang took action, it would inevitably attract attention from many parties. Similarly, it was impossible for Jiang Qin to lead a pioneer group to help him find Xia Xiaochan alone. Therefore, Han Fei thought of Wang Dashuai, this senior brother whom he had only met twice. The fishing boat had just flown dozens of kilometers when Han Fei suddenly turned and went straight to the skeleton shore camp. Lu Renkuang asked, where are you going? I need to get something. Yiling Yun and the others hadn't returned to the skeleton shore yet when they saw a streak of red light disappearing like a flash of light. Their faces changed. Leng Hui asked, it's the captain. Has he returned to the camp? Yiling Yun nodded. Let's go and have a look. On the skeleton shore, Cao Qiu occupied a large area by himself. The grass around him withered, the trees withered, and there was not even a single ant or flying insect. Cao Qiu was sitting in front of a large pot and muttered, well, I must get some benefits from him this time. I'll get the antidote first, and then ask him for spirit awakening fluid, at least 800 caddies. Yes, that's the price. Swish. Bam. Cao Qiu's perception trembled. He just sensed that something was coming. In the next second, Han Fei appeared in front of him. Cao Qiu looked stunned. What's wrong? Have you thought it through? Let me tell you, I've spent a lot this time. Why do you look so pale? Without saying a word, Han Fei grabbed the waist tag on Cao Qiu's waist. He stuck the waist tag on his own waist tag. New god of poison, give it to me. Cao Qiu shook his head. No, Where are you going? Chao Chio saw Han Fei holding 2 waist tags in front of him, and on his waist tag, too. 16 million points were added. Chao Chio was stunned. When did Han Fei become so generous? He actually transferred all of his points to me? This doesn't make sense. This is Han Fei. He's so stingy. Even if he bought it with credit points, he could buy more than 400 caddies of Spirit Awakening fluid with 16 million credit points. Han Fei gave all his points to him, which was obviously not a simple thing. Chao Chio was not a fool. What happened? Han Fei threw his waist tag to him and then stretched out his hand. A golden harpoon appeared in his hand, and he stabbed it into the ground. I'll trade a semi-divine weapon for a strike from a peak-level hidden fissure. Chao Chio opened his mouth wide. Can you tell me what happened first? No matter how stupid Chao Chio was, he found that something was wrong. Han Fei was crazy. A semi-divine weapon. In fact, he only had one in his treasury. As a result, Han Fei casually threw one out. This thing was definitely enough for a strike from a peak-level hidden fissure, or even more. Without thinking, Chao Chio took out an ancient jade. Han Fei, let me tell you, don't be impulsive. You're not going to kill a hidden fissure, are you? It's very dangerous. Han, swish. Han Fei had already jumped onto the fishing boat, turned into a red light, and flew away. Yu Ling Yun and the others came late. They looked at the golden harpoon in front of Chao Chio curiously. Wu Xiaoxiao asked, Captain Chao, did our captain come just now? Chao Chio shivered. You came just in time. What happened to Han Fei? Why is he so popular today? Yu Ling Yun added, It seems that one of our captain's former teammates is missing. Hiss. Chao Chio was stunned. Who? Xia Xiaochan? Chao Chio was only familiar with Xia Xiaochan, not Lu Rinquang and the others. Therefore, his first reaction was Xia Xiaochan. Wu Xiaoxiao was surprised. Huh? Captain Chao, do you know her? Chao Chio immediately slapped his thigh. I'm screwed. Other people might not know Han Fei very well, but he did. Back then, he chased Han Fei from the seaborne prairie to the undersea city. It was said that Han Fei trapped and killed 1,000 people. At that time, Han Fei was also looking for Xia Xiaochan. This time, Xia Xiaochan was missing. Also, judging from Han Fei's look just now, he was terrifyingly fierce. Chao Chio even suspected that Han Fei would kill him if he didn't give him poison or ancient jade. Only Lung Hui stared at the harpoon and asked, Captain Chao, does this harpoon belong to a sea demon? Chao Chio nodded. Oh, a semi-divine weapon. Chao Chio was thinking about Han Fei. He subconsciously blurted it out, but then he immediately covered his mouth. Putting away the golden harpoon, he said, Don't ask. You don't know anything about what happened today. Yu Ling Yun, you are now officially the captain of the 37th squad. Find someone from the 66th squad to make up for the team. Yu Ling Yun's eyes widened. Why? Captain Chao, our captain just left for something. Chao Chio rolled his eyes. What do you know? Judging from Han Fei's behavior just now, something must have happened. Although he had a good relationship with Han Fei, he could only make up for it. For example, he could first get the 37th squad out of this matter. Otherwise, once something happened, according to the strict system of the Scattered Stars Island, the 37th squad would definitely be questioned. Chao Chio immediately said, This is an order, and none of you are allowed to disclose what happened today. If anyone asks, just say that Han Fei has already resigned. You formed a new team, Empyrean Waterfall, on the periphery of the Twisted Jungle, under a high cliff. This cliff was more than 1,800 meters high, straight up and down, without any obstacles or faults. Therefore, when the water fell, it was particularly loud. Because the water had been falling in the air for too long and the wind here was not small, the Empyrean Waterfall was always foggy. The Empyrean Waterfall was most famous for its underwater pool. This pool was connected to the depths of the Scattered Stars Island. It was said that there were monsters living in the pool. At first, some peak-level hanging fissures went into the pool to explore, but they didn't come up. Later, some hidden fissures went deep, but they also didn't come up. In the end, a law enforcer went in and came out seriously injured. That person only said that no one was allowed to enter the altar without permission from now on. In order to prevent the creatures in the altar from coming and going, a small camp was set up here. Some particularly eccentric people would live here, such as the door-carrying marshal. However, at this moment, Han Fei was not in the mood to think about the secrets of the Empyrean waterfall, let alone enjoy the scenery. Luren Kuang had been here before. The last time he came here, he asked Wang Dashui to go to the Scattered Stars prison to rescue Han Fei. Therefore, this time, Luren Kuang went straight to Wang Dashui's residence. Wang Dashui's residence was actually quite unique, with a small plantation. However, the area was not large, only less than a kilometer. Ha ha ha. Junior brothers, why are you here today? Before Han Fei and the others called the door, they saw Wang Dashui coming out of the twisted jungle. He ran all the way, and the ground was trembling because of him. Han Fei didn't look very good. He took a breath and said, "Senior brother, help me." Wang Dashui was taken aback. "Why do you look so serious? Who bullied you? Let's go. I'll kill them." Han Fei said straightforwardly, "Senior brother, can you break into the Dark Hunter Legion?" Wang Dashui paused, and the smile on his face suddenly disappeared. He smacked his lips and said, "It's a big deal. No problem, I can break into it." Han Fei smiled. "Senior brother, I may beat them." Wang Dashui smiled and said, "It's okay. What's the big deal about beating them? I'll take responsibility for you." The three of them turned around and left. Han Fei suddenly said, "Kuang Kuang, go back." Luren Kuang immediately said angrily, F***CK off. This is not only your business, but also mine." Han Fei nodded. "Okay, then let's go together. Let's see if they will tell us anything." Han Fei sneered. If the Dark Hunter Legion still didn't tell him the reason, he would have to call Old Jiang or Jiangqin. Wang Dashui chuckled and said, "Don't worry. It's the Dark Hunter Legion. Their highest commander is only a peak-level hidden fisher. He is definitely not in the Legion. As for the others, he can tell them." "But, junior brother, what's going on?" Han Fei said with a straight face, "Xia Xiaochan is missing, but the Dark Hunter Legion won't say anything." Wang Dashui nodded seriously. "Then we have to ask them." The Dark Hunter Legion was arguably the most mysterious of all the organizations on the Scattered Stars Island. Even if outsiders knew where they were, they would often find that they couldn't find a single person when they walked in. After all, being a hunter was one of the best professions in concealing oneself. Especially in the Dark Hunter Legion, whether it was day or night, they were usually in a hidden state and didn't move often. At this moment, in a quiet forest, several hunters were secretly talking to each other. Suddenly, above the sky, a huge thing flew over. "Who is it?" Thud! A large tree was smashed in half, and several hunters leaped out of it. On the ground where grass and leaves were flying, a corner of a big green gate was inserted into the ground. Within a radius of 200 meters, all the weeds were bent by the wind. Fourth update. Please vote. Fourth update first. I'll update at about 8 p.m. I'm still eating and drinking at noon. Happy New Year to everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 709. On the Scattered Stars Island, no matter which organization it was, they would basically not guard against the dangers from the island itself. When the big green door fell from the sky, someone discovered that something was wrong. However, when they discovered it, it was already too late. The big green door crashed to the ground, shaking the ground within dozens of kilometers. Amidst the flying grass, Wang Dashui, Han Fei, and Luren Kuang stood quietly beside the big green door. Wang Dashui roared like a beast king, shaking the grass and leaves. "Dark Hunter Legion, come out to meet me." Generally speaking, for a relatively large organization like the Dark Hunter Legion, the strength of the commanders was quite strong. There were many 6-star commanders, and there were also 7-star commanders. However, this was not the headquarters of the Dark Hunter Legion. Therefore, it was already extremely rare for a deputy commander with a 6-star rank to appear. More than 500 hunters were approaching them at this moment. Many people were hiding in trees, grass, and even underground. There were more than 80 people who walked out with their real bodies. These people directly surrounded Han Fei and the others. Han Fei looked around and easily found Shui Ran, who seemed to be the captain of Xia Xiaochan's team, among this group of people. When Shui Ran saw Han Fei, she was slightly taken aback, and then her eyes narrowed slightly. However, when someone saw Luren Kuang, he immediately frowned and said, "It's you again? Didn't I tell you? Outsiders don't need to know about the Dark Hunter Legion." It was a man who looked indifferent and was not intimidated by Wang Dashuai's 6-star waist tag. After all, he himself was a 5-star. Otherwise, he wouldn't be qualified to stand in front of these people. Swish! The moment this person said this, Han Fei drew his knife and used the draw technique with all his strength, falling directly in front of this person in an instant. Han Fei, who had mastered the air-breaking strike, attacked shockingly fast. The man didn't expect that Han Fei dared to suddenly attack in front of so many people. Besides, this attack was extremely fierce. The knife light seemed to have locked on him and didn't give him any time to react. An ultra-quality battle suit appeared on this hunter's body, and a scorpion phantom appeared behind him. The 2 daggers in his hands slashed out 16 times in a row with all his strength. Together with the stinger of the scorpion, he barely blocked Han Fei's draw technique. Gotcha! After blocking Han Fei's attack, the ultra-quality dagger in the hunter's hand was directly broken. "How dare you? How dare you? Brat, you're courting death." The hunter who was attacked said gloomily, "Where are you from? How dare you pick a fight with the Dark Hunter Legion?" Han Fei glanced at him coldly and pointed at Luren Kuang. "Are you the one who refused to answer his question?" Han Fei raised his knife. "Yeah, so what?" Han raised his knife. "I didn't use my full strength. If you had met me on the sea, you would have died." Among them, a woman wrapped in tight black clothes took a few steps forward and said with an unfriendly expression, "What's the meaning of this, door-carrying marshal? Did you bring 2 little guys to make trouble in the Dark Hunter Legion?" Wang Dashuai put a hand on the big green door. "I'm here to ask about Junior Sister's whereabouts. If you don't make it clear, I'll smash the Dark Hunter Legion." The 6-star hunter's eyes were cold. "I'm Pei Yi from the 3rd Regiment of the Dark Hunter Legion. I've long heard of door-carrying commander. Let's see what you've done today." As soon as he said that, Pei Yi disappeared. The spiritual energy under Wang Dashuai's feet trembled, and the big green door rose from the ground and flew into the air. As Wang Dashuai punched the big green door, the sound waves rippled like a great bell. Then he suddenly turned his head to the right, grabbed the big green door with one hand, and slammed it down like lightning. The 100-meter-long shadow of the green door suddenly smashed down. Thud! The hunters in that direction were all shocked and rushed to both sides, trying to escape the attack range of the big green door. However, they didn't expect that Wang Dashuai and the big green door, which looked rather clumsy, were extremely fast. Pei Yi had only appeared because she had no other choice. Her 5-star subordinates couldn't resist Wang Dashuai's blow. So, she stood in front of those people. Thud! Pei Yi flew out like a black shadow in the midst of a deafening roar, and all the hunters within 100 meters of the great verdant gate's shadow spat out blood one after another. Dozens of trees were blasted apart by the door. Han Fei and Luren Kuang, who hadn't seen Wang Dashuai fight before, looked at each other at this moment. This simple-looking senior brother was a little too violent. The other party was also a 6-star powerhouse, but he couldn't even resist one blow from him. Moreover, more than 30 hunters with 5 stars and those with even lower stars who were hiding in the dark were injured by this attack. Thud! Wang Dashuai inserted the big green door into the ground again. "Now, can you answer the question properly?" When Pei Yi came out of the forest, blood was flowing from the corner of her mouth, and she looked at Wang Dashuai with a weird look. However, neither Wang Dashuai nor Han Fei cared about it. "I'm here to ask questions. Didn't you refuse to cooperate? Didn't you refuse to answer? Fine, I'll beat you until you cooperate and answer." Pei Yi gritted her teeth. "Door-carrying marshal, don't forget the rules of the Scattered Stars Island." Wang Dashuai grinned and smiled. "My junior sister is missing, and you want to talk about rules with me? Let me ask you, will you answer or not?" Wang Dashuai was so domineering at this moment that hundreds of people didn't dare to answer him. Pei Yi looked uncertain. She was not one of those 4 or 5-star weaklings. As one of the deputy commanders of the Dark Hunter Legion, she knew a lot of things. On the Scattered Stars Island, there were always some people who didn't follow the rules. The brutal men living above the Empyrean waterfall, on the other hand, were usually unreasonable. It was exactly because of this that they were placed in such a dangerous place as the Empyrean waterfall. Pei compromised. Xia Xiaochan was missing, and people from her sect came to her. It seemed that she had to give them an explanation. Although she had contacted her captain, he probably wouldn't arrive for a while. But if Wang Dashui was allowed to continue, the consequences would be bad. Pei said, Shui Ran, Yuan Heng, and Feng Ro step out. After the three of them stepped out, Pei said, the three of them led the 30 hunters on this mission. You can ask them. However, door-carrying marshal, let me remind you that you've broken the rules. Don't blame the law enforcement team and the Scattered Stars prison for finding you. Wang Dashui chuckled and didn't take it seriously. He looked at Han Fei. Junior brother, asked them. Han Fei only knew Shui Ran, so when Shui Ran stepped out, Han Fei knew that she must know something. Han Fei stared at him coldly. How many of the 30 hunters came back alive? Shui Ran was stunned. She thought that Han Fei would ask directly, but she didn't know why Han Fei started the conversation. However, Shui Ran didn't expect that Han Fei would be so domineering and tough as to find helpers to break into the Dark Hunter Legion. Shui Ran said, 20 of them came back alive. Han Fei slightly narrowed his eyes. The probability of death was more than 30%. This mission couldn't be simple. Han Fei asked, what mission are you on? Shui Ran frowned and looked at Pei. Pei nodded and said, if he dares to ask, just tell him. Shui Ran looked at Han Fei thoughtfully. This mission is to enter the undersea chimney and snatch the spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei's pupils suddenly constricted. He probably knew why Xia Xiaochan had an attack. The last time Xia Xiaochan had an attack was after he killed the half-mermaids on the skeleton shore. At that time, he offered Xia Xiaochan the spirit awakening fluid, but Xia Xiaochan refused, claiming that she had made rapid progress recently and was afraid that she couldn't suppress it. It had been a long time since then, but Xia Xiaochan didn't have an attack. But entering the undersea chimney this time was a big deal. Whether it was dangerous or not, the spirit awakening fluid alone might destroy Xia Xiaochan's suppression of strength. Han Fei took a breath and continued. Tell me what happened. Shui Ran glanced at the tree not far away on the right. Gong Wenhai Yang Ying come down. Han Fei was a bit unfriendly when he saw Gong Wenhai. He hated this person. However, he knew Xia Xiaochan's temper very well. With Gong Wenhai's strength, it would be impossible for him to take advantage of Xia Xiaochan. As for Yang Ying, she looked very ordinary. She had an average face, was thin, and had protruding cheekbones. Like most other hunters, she was very cold. Yang Ying looked at Han Fei coldly too. She must have hated Han Fei's behavior at this moment. Gong Wenhai was also gloomy when he saw Han Fei. However, there was a hint of mockery in his eyes. Last time, he couldn't resist Han Fei's attack, which was embarrassing enough. This time, although Han Fei broke into the Dark Hunter Legion with his men, it wasn't so easy to break into the Dark Hunter Legion. Did he really think that nothing would happen to him after he broke into the Dark Hunter Legion? Han Fei looked at Shui Ran. By logic, you should have 10 people in each group. Why are there only 2 of them? Without waiting for Shui Ran to speak, Gong Wenhai said, out of the 30 people, 6 of them died in our group. Han Fei's eyelids slightly shivered. Tell me what happened. Gong Wenhai sneered. What happened? At that time, the inferior manfish, the red demons, the half-mermaids, and many other sea creatures broke into the undersea chimney with us. It was very chaotic, but when we were competing for the spirit awakening fluid, Xia Xiaochan suddenly went on a rampage and attacked her companions. 3 people in our team were heavily wounded by Xia Xiaochan, and our location was exposed. We were surrounded by sea demons. Later, we had to ask for help. Next to him, Yang Ying said, because of that, 6 people in our team died. As she spoke, Yang Ying raised her left hand, which was missing a little finger. Yang Ying said, it was cut by Xia Xiaochan. If I hadn't reacted in time, my whole hand would have been gone. Gong Wenhai said, It's true that I like Xia Xiaochan, but I can't deny that she has become a traitor to mankind. She did do that. Han Fei raised his hand and his knife. Next time, think before you speak. Don't talk nonsense that you shouldn't. Otherwise, there will be serious consequences. Fifth update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 710. Gong Wenhai smiled at Han Fei's threat. Gong Wenhai sneered. Yang Ying and I saw Xia Xiaochan going on a rampage with our own eyes. Captain Shui Ran saw it too. Do you think we're lying? Han Fei said indifferently. Who knows if you did anything to her? For example, you might have poisoned her or used illusions. You'd better shut up if you don't have solid evidence. There was anger in Gong Wenhai's eyes. You're being unreasonable. Do you want to kill me? Han Fei said coldly. For what you said, I'll definitely kill you if I meet you on the sea in the future. Gong Wenhai raised his eyebrows. He was intimidated by Han Fei's murderous eyes. This guy really wanted to kill him. Shui Ran said coldly. Your name is Han Fei, right? You'd better think before you speak. Han Fei squinted at her. I didn't ask you anything. Shut up. Shui Ran froze. Isn't this young man a little too arrogant? Why don't you take a look at whose territory you're in? In fact, Han Fei didn't intend to save face this time. Even if Wang Dashui couldn't take care of the Dark Hunter Legion, Jiang Qin or old Jiang could. He didn't care about that. What he cared about was where Xia Xiaochan was. Other people might not be able to find Xia Xiaochan, but he could. With Little White, the omnipotent tracker, it was only a matter of time before he found Xia Xiaochan. Han Fei continued to ask, was Xia Xiaochan injured at that time? Yang Ying replied, no. Xia Xiaochan went on a rampage too suddenly and ran away by herself. At that time, the situation was too chaotic for us to be distracted. Gong Wenhai chased her but failed. Han Fei glanced at Gong Wenhai, who looked at Han Fei mockingly. She ran to the deep sea. You know how fast Xia Xiaochan is. I don't need to tell you. Also, let me correct you. I didn't chase her alone. A sea demon chased after her too. Han Fei frowned. What are you trying to say? Gong Wenhai shut up. That was all he wanted to say. There were two possibilities why a sea demon chased Xia Xiaochan. The first one was that Xia Xiaochan killed the sea demon, and the sea demon chased after her. If Xia Xiaochan was really a traitor of mankind, the consequences would be very serious. Han Fei looked at Pei Yi. Where is the undersea chimney? Pei Yi shook her head. It's useless even if you know. That place had already been occupied by sea demons and marine creatures. At this time, the battle should be almost over. The undersea chimney should have been flattened. Han Fei said calmly, Position. Pei Yi smiled coldly. 8,000 miles south of the Hell Coast. But if I remember correctly, door-carrying marshal, you're forbidden from going out to sea, right? Han Fei was taken aback. Wang Dashui was restricted from going to sea. Han Fei had never thought about that. He had always felt that Wang Dashui stayed on the Scattered Stars Island for some other reason. Didn't he say that he had 2 senior brothers and senior sisters outside? After coming to the Scattered Stars Island for so long, he had never seen them. Why was Wang Dashui the only one who was restricted from going to sea? Wang Dashui, it doesn't matter. It's not impossible to go there. Senior brother, I'll go by myself. Lu Renquang added, Me too. Han Fei glanced at Lu Renquang. You can't. You're so talented, but you refuse to cultivate. You'll only hold us back. Huh, you, an intermediate hanging fisher, want to go to sea? Or go 8,000 miles away? Gong Wenhai sneered, his eyes full of mockery. Han Fei glanced at him. I hate sarcastic people the most. Now I have one more reason to kill you. Gong Wenhai's face darkened, and he immediately felt very angry. Han Fei really didn't take him seriously. However, when Gong Wenhai was about to speak, a voice came from the sky. Don't even think about going to sea. Come back to the Scattered Stars prison with me. As soon as this voice fell, another person said, Wang Dashui, you broke into the Dark Hunter Legion and hurt my men. Do you think there's no one in the Dark Hunter Legion? Zhang Tong from the Scattered Stars prison came. Almost at the same time as him, a cold, middle-aged man arrived. Wang Dashui scratched his head. It's a bit troublesome, but it doesn't matter. Little junior brother, why don't you go? It's a bit dangerous. I'll figure out a way to go in person later. Han Fei shook his head. Senior brother, if there's anyone who can find Xia Xiaochan as soon as possible, I'm afraid it's me. Wang Dashui glanced at Han Fei seriously. Do you have to go? Han Fei nodded. Of course. Wang Dashui grinned. Good job, junior brother. I'll stop these two people for you. You can go now. As soon as Wang Dashui said this, Zhang Teng and the cold man in the sky changed their expressions at the same time. Zhang Teng said, Wang Dashui, don't make a mistake. I have reason to suspect that Xia Xiaochan has betrayed mankind. I'm taking Han Fei away just for routine questioning. Han Fei glanced at Zhang Teng. F*CKU. As soon as Han Fei said this, everyone present changed their expressions. He insulted a 7-star powerhouse and provoked the current warden of the Scattered Stars prison in public. Was there something wrong with his swallowing seashell? However, Han Fei simply took out the wind god boat and jumped on it. Zhang Teng's face couldn't be more awful. Han Fei, do you know what you're doing now? Swish! A streak of light flashed across the sky, and the wind god boat rushed out at full speed. Zhang Teng and the cold man threw out their fishing hooks almost at the same time. But on the ground, a roar burst out, shaking the space and rolling airwaves. Wang Dashui picked up the big green gate and stepped into the air. Dazzling green light burst out from his body. At this time, the big green gate turned into a shadow of a giant gate hundreds of meters long and slapped at the two people with dazzling green light. Han Fei had thought about it carefully. If he didn't leave this time and was taken away by Zhang Teng, he would definitely be monitored again. Even though he was now a member of the Scattered Stars First Unit, he had only experienced one mission and didn't have a solid foundation. Even if Zhang Teng didn't kill him, as long as he stalled him for a few days, it would be really difficult to find Xia Xiaochan later. Besides, if what Gong Wenhai said was true, if Xia Xiaochan's illness was over and she found a way to come back, it would be a big problem. It was obvious that he would be taken to the Scattered Stars prison. At that time, unless he found old Jiang, it would be impossible to save her from Wang Dashui. But Han Fei felt that old Jiang actually had a lot of restrictions on the Scattered Stars Island. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lived in the Twisted Jungle. Therefore, after Han Fei found Xia Xiaochan, he probably wouldn't return to the Scattered Stars Island in a short time. His idea was to first find a way to kill some half-mermaid heavenly talents and then use military exploits to shut their mouths. At the same time, Han Fei also needed to go to the sea. He had to go to the sea eventually. He needed to find the right time and the right place to deduce the 5th level of the void fishing art. But if he wanted to kill 100 people on the Scattered Stars Island, he could only wait for a mission or wait for the sea demons to attack. No matter how frequent the missions were and how fierce the war was, it would be difficult for him to advance without several months, so he naturally wouldn't be qualified to go to the sea. Therefore, Han Fei chose to go to the sea by force. Although this behavior would lead to a lot of consequences, Han Fei didn't care so much at this moment. In this damn place, others wouldn't care about your life or death. Xia Xiaochan was also a heavenly talent, but in this case, no one would care about her life or death. However, others didn't care, but Han Fei did. If he took Lu Rinquang and the others with him, he would be a big target, and it would be faster if he went alone. 8,000 kilometers, this distance was actually not far. With the speed of the wind god boat, it only took less than 2 hours to arrive. However, Han Fei's speed was too fast and attracted the attention of many people and creatures. In fact, on the sea outside the Scattered Stars Island, there were also battlefields and front lines, but Han Fei and the others couldn't get in touch with them before. On the way, Han Fei happened to pass by a chaotic battle. It was a battle between human beings and half-mermaids, led by a 7-star powerhouse. When Han Fei's wind god boat passed by, the 7-star powerhouse only had time to ask, 4-star, how dare you go to the sea? Then, there was nothing else. The wind god boat turned into a stream of light and flew away. The powerhouse had to attend to the battlefield and had no time to chase after him. For example, during the flight of the wind god boat, Han Fei saw half-mermaids appear on the sea, and red demons occasionally jumped out of the sea, but most of them were ordinary inferior manfish, jumping on the sea. Besides, they would foolishly chase the red light left by the wind god boat and run for a few steps. In addition to the sea demons, Han Fei saw a school of fish passing by, which was the star sea flying fish. They could turn into a beam of light in midair and dash thousands of meters forward. Their ability was comparable to teleportation. There were also dragon-like creatures, whose huge bodies swept across the sea. On the water's surface, huge black shadows were reflected. Just by observing it with the naked eye, it reminded people of deep-sea monsters. Along the way, Han Fei encountered no less than 50 exotic creatures in a sea area of 8,000 kilometers. Some of the creatures had already fled the moment Han Fei sensed it, or looked at Han Fei from the bottom of the ocean with crooked eyes. Wow, the unknown place is really much more terrifying than the level 3 fishery. 6th update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 711. When Han Fei found the so-called undersea chimney, there was still a lot of fighting. The spirit awakening fluid was long gone. However, the sea creatures' corpses were everywhere. The powerful sea creatures had all left, leaving only countless ordinary or rare creatures fighting and devouring the broken corpses crazily. The so-called undersea chimney was actually a kind of mountain pass similar to an undersea volcano. However, Han Fei could no longer see the whole picture of the so-called undersea chimney because the upper layer had been crushed and boulders were everywhere. Han Fei's first thought when he came here was that he needed the spiritual energy in front of him. Yes, too many sea creatures had died here, and their corpses almost covered the seabed. There were ordinary creatures that joined in at all times, making this place seem like it was in chaos. Due to the fact that far too many living beings had perished here, the spiritual chi here was also abnormally abundant. Han Fei glanced at the 500,000 points of spiritual energy he had stored. If he encountered something serious, this amount of spiritual energy would definitely not be enough. He now needed at least 100 million points of spiritual energy that could be continuously output. And here, in an undersea chimney that had just been flattened, the corpses of tens of millions of creatures gathered. Although a lot of spiritual energy had dissipated, Han Fei thought it should be easy to get a few million points of spiritual energy here. Of course, Han Fei had to find Xia Xiaochan, but he needed to have enough spiritual energy to support him. Otherwise, if an accident happened and a battle broke out, it would be difficult for him to fight again and again. After all, to put it bluntly, he was only an intermediate hanging fisher, and theoretically, he was not qualified to come to the open sea at all. After confirming that there were no exotic creatures here, Han Fei put away the fishing boat and jumped into the sea. Almost in an instant, thousands of creatures came at Han Fei and tore at him. All kinds of knife lights, thorns, flying needles, and poisons were sprayed at Han Fei. And in Han Fei's body, 200 blue sea wandering dragon daggers burst out. Outside his body, they formed a sphere and began to spin crazily. Absorb. He couldn't control the blue sea wandering dragon daggers for long, which was related to his spiritual power. However, in Han Fei's current situation, under such crazy attacks, he could probably only persist for half an hour, or even less. So Han Fei quickly dove to the bottom of the sea, stepped on a spirit-gathering array, and spiritual energy swept Han Fei like a storm. Logically speaking, creatures above level 40 knew how to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. At least in the level 3 fishery, the sea creatures already knew the importance of life. However, at this very moment, the creatures here had completely gone berserk, forming a scene of moths flying into a flame. Han Fei was that fire. At this moment, spiritual energy from all directions converged toward him. Even though countless supreme-grade spiritual weapons were spinning crazily around him, there were still countless creatures charging towards him. The center of Han Fei's eyebrows was flashing, and a tremendous amount of spiritual energy was poured in, which was much faster than swallowing spiritual fruits. On average, about 20,000 points of spiritual energy flowed into his body every second. However, After 100 minutes, Han Fei found that the 10,000 knives in one couldn't hold on any longer, mainly because his spiritual power couldn't hold on any longer. Immediately, the seawater within 100 meters of Han Fei became sticky, and countless water blades surged. Almost all living beings within 100 meters were instantly torn to shreds. The infinity water was a treasure of the city, but Han Fei couldn't exert its real value yet. At present, Han Fei's only understanding of the infinity water was that he could turn the sea into knives with his mind. However, the strength of this water knife was still much weaker than the real 10,000 knives in one. Besides, the infinity water also consumed Han Fei's mind and spiritual power, but it was slightly less than controlling the 10,000 knives in one. Unfortunately, after another 100 minutes, Han Fei felt a little dizzy. There were too many creatures. He could absorb spiritual energy with the demon purification pot, but it couldn't withstand the crazy attacks of so many creatures. So, after absorbing more than 4 million points of spiritual energy, Han Fei escaped from the undersea chimney. Han Fei suddenly disappeared, and the next moment, he had appeared in Forge the Universe. Looking at the reserve of spiritual energy, Han Fei sighed slightly. He was too reckless when he was on the Scattered Stars Island. At that time, he was unscrupulous because he had a lot of spiritual energy. But when he subdued Snowmorn in the Snow God's Temple, he almost used up the available spiritual energy in Forge the Universe. The remaining ultra-quality spiritual stones only added up to 10 million points of spiritual energy, which was far from enough. Han Fei stuffed about 30 spiritual fruits into his mouth and cultivated for an hour. After completely digesting and absorbing the spiritual fruit, the reserve of spiritual energy reached 7 million points. With this number, Han Fei immediately threw the half-mermaid's golden battle suit into the demon purification pot. A moment later, to Han Fei's great regret, he spent nearly 2.5 million points of spiritual energy to refine a new battle suit. Name Golden Battle Suit Introduction. This is a battle suit made of red sun mystic crystals. It weighs 108,000 kilograms and contains a metal barrier inside. When attacked, it can reflect half of the power. Quality semi-divine weapon attached, none recastable, unrefined note. Due to the limited forging materials, it can be cast into a semi-divine weapon at most. Sitting cross-legged and cultivating for an hour, Han Fei opened his eyes, flashed, and appeared at the bottom of the sea. As soon as Han Fei appeared, a king insect in front of him was so scared that it immediately ran away. Han Fei didn't care about it. He spread out his senses and didn't find any unusual creatures within a radius of more than 30 kilometers. So, with a flash between Han Fei's eyebrows, Little Black and Little White appeared. Because of the restrictions on the Scattered Stars Island, Han Fei hadn't summoned Little Black and Little White for a long time, except for the time in the Snow God's Temple. At this moment, Han Fei touched Little White's head and said, "Daughter, find Xia Xiaochan and the hexagon starfish." With a whoosh, Little Black leaped out and directly bit through a snake-patterned fish. It also shook its head and tore a few mouthfuls. Han Fei said angrily, "Come back. This is not the time to play. Don't run around." Little White had turned around several times. At first, it aimed at the undersea chimney not far away, but then it changed its direction and aimed at the deep sea. Han Fei's heart sank. Xia Xiaochan had indeed gone to the deep sea. On the undersea chimney side, because the spirit awakening fluid had been snatched up and a large number of ordinary and rare creatures had gathered there, Han Fei and some powerful creatures avoided it. After all, no matter how strong the exotic creatures or the inferior manfish were, they couldn't last long under the attack of the endless ordinary sea creatures. Even he, with the help of the 10,000 knives in one and the infinity water, could only hold on for about 200 breaths, which was less than the time for half an incense stick to burn. Han Fei looked back, a little reluctant. If he wasn't in such a hurry, he could probably go there to absorb a wave of spiritual energy every 3 hours or so on average. One day was enough for him to accumulate more than 10 million points of spiritual energy. However, time waited for no man. It had been 3 hours since he set off from the Scattered Stars Island, and it had been even longer since Xiaochan got sick and ran to the depths of the ocean. It had probably been more than 16 hours. In this extremely dangerous, unknown place, Han Fei knew nothing about the periphery of the Scattered Stars Island. Neither did Xiaochan. At this time, he could only pray that Xiaochan's illness was over and that she would be pulled into the gate by the hexagon starfish. If that was the case, the odds of finding her would be very high. The hexagon starfish was a professional when it came to escaping for his life. The hexagon starfish had so many array heritages, which were not for fun. However, after Han Fei swam for more than 200 kilometers, suddenly, an extremely sharp sound pierced into his head. Han Fei grunted. When he scanned with his perception, he found that more than 3,000 meters away, a transparent creature was rolling in the tide and charging at him. Han Fei immediately spat, grabbed 2 clumps of mud, and stuffed his ears while pretending to swim forward casually. However, the result of closing his ears didn't weaken the sharp sound much. When he was a kilometer away, Han Fei vomited a mouthful of blood. Damn it, what's that? Little Black, bite it to death. The transparent creature naturally couldn't find Little Black. So after Little Black bit off half of its body, it stopped screaming. At this moment, Han Fei also arrived, and information popped up in his eyes. Name: Tsunami Jellyfish. Introduction. This is an exotic creature that can absorb sound. It can transform sound into a sharp power to break through the enemy's mental barrier, wound or kill the enemy, and then absorb the enemy's spiritual power. When encountering an enemy, the tsunami jellyfish can mislead the enemy into discovering its real location through the vibration of sound, so that it can escape in an orderly manner. Contains a sharp pearl inside. Eating it can increase spiritual power. Level 46, quality, exotic, spiritual energy greater than 6,124 points. Effect: it can increase spiritual power after eating. Collectible, sharp pearl, absorbable. When he saw the creature, Han Fei thought of something. Little Black, don't bite it. Keep it alive. Han Fei caught the tsunami jellyfish. He found that what would happen if the tsunami jellyfish was sealed into a knife? Would it make such a sharp sound when it attacked and pierce into the enemy's mind? Immediately, Han Fei took out the blood-drinking knife and sealed the spirit without hesitation. The 7th chapter. Please vote. Today's the 7th chapter. I wish you a happy new year without drinking. End of this chapter. Chapter 712. Shua. Han Fei slashed at a sandskin shrimp with a blood-drinking knife that had been sealed again. When the saber radiance was 500 meters away from it, the sandskin shrimp suddenly froze. It hadn't realized what was going on until it was cut in half by Han Fei. Immediately, Han Fei's eyes flickered. Sure enough, the ocean was the place that really made people stronger. He had only been out of the Scattered Stars Island for more than 6 hours, and he had already found a creature like the tsunami jellyfish. It was of great significance. If the half-mermaid heavenly talent had such a moment of shock when he fought him, he wouldn't have needed to fight the half-mermaid heavenly talent at all. In a sense, this was more practical than increasing the speed of the saber gleam by 30%, and it would catch people off guard. However, on the Scattered Stars Island, Han Fei had never seen a creature like the tsunami jellyfish, not even once. It also indicated that many resources on the Scattered Stars Island were relatively barren. It was like a rear base in the unknown place, and the people on the Scattered Stars Island were equivalent to the staff of the base. On the other hand, only those who fought outside the ocean could be considered true warriors. Only then could they grow rapidly. On the Scattered Stars Island, those who seemed to be scared of the invasion of sea demons every day were actually equivalent to civil servants and were the safest. The higher the safety factor, the slower their growth would be. For example, it was impossible for them to catch a tsunami jellyfish in the offshore waters, because the tsunami jellyfish wouldn't approach the offshore area at all. Little White continued to lead the way. After swimming for less than 100 kilometers, Han Fei saw an overwhelming swarm of red poison cuttlefish charging at him like missiles. Han Fei was lost for words. They weren't targeting him, but he happened to be in their way. Han Fei jumped straight to the upper water area. Once so many poisonous cuttlefish were alarmed, they would spew venom crazily. If it were any other time, Han Fei could try his best. After all, the heaven spirit detoxifying insect needed time to grow. Since he had the heaven spirit detoxifying insect, it was still level 31 and hadn't reached 32 yet. But now was a special time, and Han Fei didn't want to waste time on it. However, as soon as Han Fei swam to the upper water area, he sensed a large group of thousands of winged fish rushing at him. Han Fei. In his perception, those winged fish's mouths were several meters wide when opened, and their entire bodies were close to 5 or 6 meters long. The fins on both sides were straight, like the wings of a plane. No matter how one looked at it, it didn't look like anything good. Han Fei was about to dodge again. However, he was also curious about what kind of creature it was. Therefore, he only dodged slightly. As a result, when the big-mouthed flying fish saw Han Fei, it split into dozens of them and swooped at Han Fei. When he saw the information of this fish, he was speechless. A ray fish? This was clearly a manta ray. How did it turn into a ray? Name, flying ray. Introduction, an extremely fast skate that likes to eat shrimps and red poison cuttlefish. Their fins were like 2 blades or wings, capable of slashing their enemies. The flying ray's mouth contained nirvana water, which could quickly corrode its enemies. It was extremely difficult to break free from the flying ray's attack. Level 46 quality. Rare spiritual energy greater than 4,366 points. Effect. Long-term consumption can increase speed. Collectible. Blade feather absorbable. Han Fei was lost for words. It was only a rare creature, but it was already level 46. There was also the nirvana water. Although he didn't know what it was theoretically impossible for the flying rays to swim so fast with their mouths open. Therefore, their bodies must have a drainage function. Han Fei sensed again, only to discover that the fish didn't have abdomens. Their mouths were connected to their abdomens, which are made of bones like gills. Han Fei was stunned. Is this a zombie fish? You don't even have a stomach. How can you eat anything? Han Fei slashed the blood-drinking knife. In an instant, half of the flying rays that swooped at Han Fei stopped swimming and simply let their bodies charge forward. Han Fei, on the other hand, slashed 5 flying rays with 1 slash, and the remaining flying rays simply swooshed back to their main team. Han Fei's face was gloomy. Was this the unknown place? Wasn't the frequency of encounters with shoals too high? He didn't even have time to accelerate. In the blink of an eye, he encountered a group, and in the blink of an eye, a group. It was either exotic creatures, or this group, and that group. An hour later, Han Fei's face was even darker. Just in the past 2 hours, he had encountered exotic creatures 3 times, shoals of fish 7 times, star ocean flying fish once, sky-facing razor clams once, and a flood snake. At this moment, Han Fei's head was even bigger. He had encountered a red demon? Yes, 30 kilometers away from Han Fei's perception, a red demon was sitting on the back of a lobster. It seemed to be in a slightly different direction from him. Therefore, the red demon shouldn't have discovered him. Han Fei was thinking whether he should kill this red demon or not. On second thought, Han Fei felt that he should kill it. This time, he had secretly left the Scattered Stars Island, which couldn't be settled with a few words when he went back. He had to come up with something convincing, such as a battle record. So, Han Fei set up a stealth array under his feet and then cast another one. Slowly, he approached the past. Han Fei still didn't know what level the red demon was. If the other party was a big shot above level 50, then he would stand still and wait for it to pass. If not, retrieving Little Black and Little White, Han Fei moved very slowly, for fear that his actions would affect the normal flow of the seawater. Therefore, he was floating with the seawater. The red demon was holding a harpoon in its hand and glancing at him from time to time, which stunned Han Fei. Huh? Why does this guy look like he's patrolling? Name, Red Demon, Ordinary Sea Demon. Introduction, a sea demon with mature intelligence, cruel and bloodthirsty. Because of its relatively poor breed, it is impossible to determine what kind of creature it evolved from. It is extremely strong, good at mermaid tactics, and can control some marine creatures. It has a life spear in its body, which is the strongest blow of the red demon. Level 49, spiritual energy 7. 705, demon heritage, level 4. High quality, realm, demon transformation, companion spirit, silver thorn lobster, unabsorbable. Han Fei was relieved to see that it was a level 49 creature. Level 49, equivalent to a human peak level hanging fisher, was not weak at all. If he were still a dangling fisher, he wouldn't be able to defeat it in a head-on battle. However, Han Fei was no longer what he used to be. He was already an intermediate hanging fisher, which was 3 levels higher than when he fought a peak-level hanging fisher, including a major realm. Han Fei slowly drew out the blood-drinking knife. As soon as Han Fei released his killing intent, the red demon jumped, clenched the harpoon in its hand, and set off a wave, rushing straight in Han Fei's direction. I've been discovered already? Haha, it's a pity that it's too late. Swish! Han Fei had already launched the draw technique, and his energy was at its peak. He had been preparing for this attack for a long time. In an instant, the knife light leaped dozens of meters away from the red demon. The other party paused slightly, and, just for a moment, it lost its last chance to resist. The knife light swept past and directly cut the red demon in half. Han Fei rushed over. This was the first time he had killed a red demon of the level of a peak-level hanging fisher. The knife just now was very powerful, and it could be said to have condensed 30% of Han Fei's strength. This meant that under normal circumstances, Han Fei could only use such a knife 3 times. Han Fei rummaged for a while. He remembered that half-mermaids and other sea-swallowing seashells were put in their stomachs. So he grabbed with his big hand, made of spiritual energy, and sure enough, he caught a sea-swallowing seashell. But it was sticky, and Han Fei didn't want to touch it with his hand at all. The associated spirit disappeared. Han Fei threw the red demon's body into Forge the Universe and glanced at the red demon's sea-swallowing seashell. Then his eyes lit up. He found that there were more than 100 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid in this sea-swallowing seashell. In addition to the spirit awakening fluid, he also found a jade slip. Han Fei grabbed the jade slip and took a look, only to find that there were strange words written on it, just like the Oracle bone script. Who could understand them? However, just when Han Fei glanced at the jade slip and was about to throw it away, a message popped up in his mind. Demonization scripture, demon level, low quality, introduction, a semi-finished cultivation method for sea demons. If cultivated, it can turn low-level or ordinary sea demons into sea demon elites, with a success rate as high as 60%. Deduced art, demonization art, deduction cost, 0/5 million. Note, can be fused. Wow. How can it recognize this? Han Fei was stunned for a moment. But what surprised him even more was not that the demon purification pot could recognize the sea demon characters of the demonization scripture, but that it could be fused. What can be fused? What can be fused with? First update. Please vote. End of this chapter. Chapter 713. Han Fei wasn't surprised to see a sea-swallowing seashell from the red demon's belly, but he didn't think it was of good quality. He had even taken out a sea-swallowing seashell from a half-mermaid. However, there was nothing good in the sea-swallowing seashell from the half-mermaid, only a lot of spiritual spring water and a few pieces of materials. However, this was the first time that Han Fei had seen the demonization scroll. Han Fei had a guess in his heart. This demonization scroll shouldn't be a good thing. After all, it was only a demon-level, low-quality cultivation method and a semi-finished product. What did this mean? This meant that this red demon was trying to cultivate this method to break through the barrier of level 49 and become a sea demon. But the half-mermaid shouldn't be. Whether in appearance or aptitude, the half-mermaid was much better than the red demons and the inferior manfish. Would he use the demonization scripture? Han Fei felt that the half-mermaid should have cultivated a more advanced cultivation method of the demon race. The reason why they didn't carry it with them was, who the hell would throw a cultivation method on their body? Things like cultivation techniques should be thrown out one by one. Since he had already memorized it, why would he need to keep the cultivation technique itself? Of course, it didn't matter to Han Fei. After all, he only had the true spirit fishing art, which was a common skill. It was useless for others to rob it. It was everywhere. Only the true spirit fishing art above the 6th level was relatively rare. But for the first 5 levels, to be honest, many people would rather change their cultivation method than practice the true spirit fishing art. At this moment, Han Fei saw the word can be fuse again. Previously, he had fused the sea racing art, the flying fish technique, and the shadow swimming art into the 64-dimensional fish dragon dance, a venerable level combat skill. What should the demonization scroll be fused with? However, when Han Fei looked around in his mind, he suddenly froze. Fish transformation technique? Fish transformation technique, demon level, low quality. Introduction. A semi-finished transformation-type combat skill that successfully transforms people into fish with a survival rate of up to 80%. Some human beings will split and turn into demons. Deduction cost: 0/30, 000,000 deduction result. Unknown remarks. Can be fused. Han Fei frowned. The demonization scroll and the fish transformation technique can be fused? Previously, when the fish transformation technique was deduced to the demon level, low quality, it couldn't be deduced anymore. But now it could actually be fused, and it could be fused with the sea demon's cultivation method. What did this mean? The fish transformation technique turned out to be a sea demon's cultivation method. Han Fei took a deep breath. This discovery was quite significant. He got the fish avatar technique from the fiery mountain in the first secret realm of the level 2 fishery. There should be combat skills and arts left by human beings there, right? Could it be that a long time ago, human beings had already been sea demons? No, the demon-level, low-quality fish avatar technique was deduced by me. Han Fei was shocked. Suddenly, he discovered a secret. In the past, countless people had secretly studied the secrets of fish transformation. They thought that their research in this area was already quite deep. But in fact, the more they researched, the more they discovered that they didn't develop the technique of transforming humans into fish, but they developed the cultivation system of sirens as humans. But later, some strong masters discovered this secret and began to block the research of the fish transformation technique. That was why later human masters killed those who studied or even practiced the fish transformation technique. That was why later human masters killed those who studied or even practiced the fish transformation technique. Because in the eyes of those strong masters, those who practiced the fish transformation technique had actually become sea demons. The strong masters no longer regarded these people who practiced the fish avatar technique as human beings. This explained why many people returned to the sea after turning into demons and then fought against the human race. Could it be that the historical battles between sea demons and human beings actually evolved in this way? Han Fei once suspected that there were no sea demons in this world, but someone had opened up this road. Therefore, human beings became sea demons and became a brand new race. If his conjecture was correct, then in fact, the real top masters or heavenly talents among sea demons were actually descendants of human beings. They were just a branch of human beings. Han Fei glanced at the demonization scroll and then at the fish transformation technique. He really wanted to fuse them now to see what would happen. However, the spiritual energy he had now was limited. Once he fused them, it would inevitably consume a lot of spiritual energy. And he was still in the deep sea, and there might be enemies in all directions. It was obviously not cost-effective to fuse them at this time. Even if he fused them, he probably wouldn't practice them. After all, this thing directly turned him into a demon. Originally, Han Fei's original purpose was to let himself have the amazing skill of 72 transformations. But now, it was obviously not the case. Perhaps, if he kept deducing, he could perfectly exchange the identity of a human and a sea demon, just like Yang Ruiyan did. But at least not for the time being. Why should I become a demon instead of a human? A fish demon? These thoughts turned quickly in Han Fei's mind. Seeing that it was not useful, Han Fei simply gave up for the time being. On the other hand, why did these red demons appear here? Besides, according to Han Fei's observation just now, this guy was patrolling, right? Could it be that more than 8,000 kilometers away had completely become the territory of sea demons? Whether it was or not, if this red demon was killed here, it might attract other sea demons. His top priority now was to find Xia Xiaochan. He couldn't stay in this damn place. Daughter, let's go. This time, Han Fei's speed was not fast because there were indeed a lot of powerful creatures here. The strength he showed was not high, so he couldn't scare away those powerful creatures at all. Less than half an hour later, Han Fei saw another red demon. This time, it wasn't just the red demon alone. There were also two inferior manfish behind it. Han Fei's expression changed slightly. Something seemed to be wrong. It was less than 10,000 kilometers away, right? Why did so many red demons and inferior manfish appear so frequently? Han Fei was waiting. If there was only one red demon and two inferior manfish, it wouldn't be a big problem. Now, his blood-drinking knife had sealed a spirit in the tsunami jellyfish. As long as he caught them off guard, he could easily kill them. At this time, the advantage of Han Fei's perception range of up to 36 kilometers was extremely obvious at this moment. He had been waiting for the red demon and the inferior manfish on their way. Han Fei's body was fluctuating with the waves. When the red demon and the inferior manfish appeared 800 meters away, Han Fei's extremely dazzling knife instantly burst out. The knife light suddenly appeared 5 meters away in front of the red demon. At that moment, an extremely sharp howl suddenly appeared in the minds of the red demon and the two inferior manfish. The red demon's body stiffened. At the moment when it was hit by the knife light, it hadn't come back to its senses. As soon as the knife light slashed out, the red demon was killed. By the way, an inferior manfish was also killed on the spot by Han Fei. There was another inferior manfish because it was not within the attack range of this knife, so it didn't die. However, it was only 800 meters away. Han Fei rushed out at top speed and covered it in an instant. When Han Fei arrived, the inferior manfish seemed to have just recovered. When it saw Han Fei, its eyes were full of shock and astonishment. Unfortunately, it had no time to fight back and was chopped off by Han Fei. Han Fei searched and found that there was no sea swallowing seashells in the inferior manfish's body, so they fell directly to the bottom of the sea. The main reason was that the killing of the inferior manfish couldn't be concealed. If this place was really within the detection range of the sea monsters, then sooner or later they would find that the red demon and the inferior manfish were missing. Besides, when the corpses fell to the bottom of the sea, they would be devoured by sea creatures in no time. At that time, they wouldn't even know how they died. This was even more convenient than throwing them in Forge the Universe. Of course, Han Fei kept their harpoons. After all, a harpoon meant that he had killed an inferior manfish. Why didn't he throw away the red demon's body too? Han Fei just wanted to create a false impression. A false impression that the red demon was not dead, but just missing. Less than 10 minutes after killing this red demon, Han Fei had just killed a tooth-grinding shark, and an unexpected situation suddenly appeared in his perception. In his perception, there was a human fishing boat sailing over the sea, seeming to be looking for something. Han Fei just perceived it and found that it was a 6-star powerhouse. Swish! Han Fei immediately went into Forge the Universe. His concealment array and stealth array might not be able to hide from the detection of a 6-star powerhouse, so Forge the Universe was the safest. However, Han Fei was stunned. Did the scattered stars island react so quickly? It's only been less than 8 hours, right? How could they have already sent someone to chase me here? In Forge the Universe, Han Fei frowned. It seemed that this time he went to sea without permission. He would not only face the crisis in the sea, but also the investigation from human beings. For a moment, Han Fei was quite stressed. He had to find a way to find Xia Xiaochan as soon as possible. If he guessed right, according to Gong Wenhai's description, someone must have also gone to chase Xia Xiaochan. However, their tracking ability should not be as strong as his. He had Little White to lead the way. How could the scattered stars island chase him? Suddenly, Han Fei's eyes flickered, and he looked at his waist tag. Yes, I have been thousands of kilometers away from the undersea chimney. Why am I still being tracked? Han Fei immediately took off his waist tag and threw it directly into Forge the Universe. He was a little speechless. Does this waist tag have a tracking effect? If so, Xia Xiaochan is in danger. Second, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 714. High in the Sky. When Su Mo received the order to capture Han Fei, the latest location he learned was the undersea chimney. In fact, it didn't matter whether he knew Han Fei's location or not. Xia Xiaochan disappeared in the undersea chimney, so if Han Fei wanted to find her, his first stop should be the undersea chimney. However, when Su Mo rushed to the undersea chimney, the dense sea creatures gathered together made his blood freeze. Even though he had already become a hidden fisher, he still felt that he couldn't resist them. And although Han Fei was a heavenly talent, he had just become an intermediate hanging fisher, so he couldn't resist them. So Su Mo kept moving forward. Just now, when he noticed that someone was perceiving him, his first reaction was naturally Han Fei. Quickly rushing over, Su Mo found that there was no one here. At this moment, he was flying above the sea in a daze. How can there be no one? Even if it is a red demon or a half-mermaid, they should at least show up. No, I heard that Han Fei is quite proficient in arrays. Did he use a concealment array and a breath-concealing array? Su Mo clenched the spear in his hand. Facing a heavenly talent, even if he was about to become a hidden fisher, he must not take it lightly. Because according to the known intelligence, Han Fei's peak combat power could fight a peak-level hanging fisher. Besides, according to the intelligence, Han Fei had already killed peak-level hanging fishers, and the peak-level hanging fishers were the best among them. However, after searching every corner of dozens of kilometers, Su Mo still didn't find anything different. After staying for half an hour, Su Mo controlled the fishing boat to leave in doubt. Han Fei was sitting cross-legged in Forge the Universe, rummaging through the sea, swallowing seashell of the red demon. As a result, he found 100 caddies of spirit awakening fluid in the sea, swallowing seashell of this red demon. Oh, does every red demon carry so much spirit awakening fluid with them? Han Fei couldn't help but be overjoyed. Although he didn't find anything else, nor did he find any cultivation methods like the demonization scroll, 100 caddies of spirit awakening fluid was already quite valuable. According to the price of 5,000 points per caddy, killing a red demon would be worth 500,000 points. Was there anything more profitable than this in the world? Even if you refined weapons at a 30% discount in the refining hall every day, it wouldn't be as profitable as killing 2 or 3 red demons in the sea outside the Scattered Stars Island. Could it be that these red demons fought with Xia Xiaochan for the undersea chimney? Han Fei guessed that the undersea chimney had just been robbed. These red demons were so close, and they had spirit awakening fluid with them, which meant that these red demons might have robbed the undersea chimney. Otherwise, he really couldn't figure out how he could get 100 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid from a red demon. Moreover, why did it have to be 100 caddies? It didn't seem to be more or less, as if it had been allocated a fixed quota. Han Fei licked his lips. Whatever, let's drink it first. Since I can't go back anytime soon, I should try my best to improve my strength. This time, Han Fei didn't feed the spirit awakening fluid to Little Black, Little White, or the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Last time, he had fed them 2,800 kilograms, but he still couldn't push them to level 40. On one hand, it must be because the quality of his contractual spiritual beast was too high. Therefore, a large amount of spirit awakening fluid was needed to push it forward. On the other hand, he had too many contractual spiritual beasts. Including Little Black and Little White, he had 4. If he divided them evenly, the amount of spirit awakening fluid would inevitably be reduced. Although he could feed all the spirit awakening fluid to a single one, such as Little Black or Little White, however, this would inevitably cause an imbalance in strength. Besides, each contractual spiritual beast had its own abilities, and it wasn't a big deal to just improve one of them. So Han Fei began to pour it into his mouth crazily. The spirit awakening fluid tasted a little sweet and sour. For some reason, Han Fei always felt that he was drinking Yakult. When Han Fei swallowed the spirit awakening fluid, the black light in his mind appeared again. Han Fei immediately stopped swallowing, closed his eyes, and felt it. What was that? Where did the black light come from? Han Fei had always wondered why there was light and black. This was very strange, but that thing just flashed away, and he couldn't find it all. Seeing no special reaction, Han Fei continued to swallow. His upper limit of spiritual energy began to decrease a little from 11,228 points to 11,001 points. After swallowing more than 50 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid, his spiritual energy began to slowly increase again. When Han Fei drank up 200 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid, his upper limit of spiritual energy had become 11,608 points. His level was still 44, the same as before. His upper limit of spiritual energy was only less than 400 points more than at the beginning. Han Fei frowned. The effect of this thing is not very good. 200 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid, 1 million points of credit. Ordinary people might not be able to save so many points even if they work hard for 4 years. He drank it up in a moment, but his strength didn't improve much. Han Fei moved a little, and his physique seemed to be a little better, but he felt that the improvement was very small. Wait, I saw that Chao Chiu seemed to improve quite fast after drinking the spirit awakening fluid. Why am I so slow? Han Fei was confused. It had only been a little more than half an hour. He didn't know if the person outside had left or not. Forget it, he'd better wait a little longer. It was important to find Xia Xiaochan, but once he was targeted, it would be more of a waste of time. Han Fei understood this. After chewing a spiritual fruit, Han Fei found that after drinking the spirit awakening fluid, the spiritual energy in his body seemed to be no longer conflicting, so he immediately ate a dozen more. When he felt that the spiritual energy in his body began to become a little unstable, he stopped eating. At this moment, it had been almost half an hour. With a thought, Han Fei appeared in the sea again. In the sea, a snake-patterned fish was startled by the sudden appearance of Han Fei and quickly fled. Han Fei didn't care about it. He perceived that there was no one in the sky, nor did he perceive the appearance of any red demons or inferior manfish. Han Fei called out Little Black and Little White again. "Daughter, let's keep looking." After a full 2 hours, the sky was already dark and the moonlight was shining on the sea. In the deep sea, Han Fei walked and fought. Suddenly, Little White rushed in a certain direction. Han Fei's eyes lit up. Did I find it? After a while, the first thing that came into Han Fei's perception was the wreckage of a big ship. The big ship was half buried in the seabed mud, and the other half was exposed. Even so, it didn't look small. It looked like a cruise ship, much larger than ordinary fishing boats. When Han Fei saw the cruise ship, he rushed to it as fast as he could. Han Fei thought that this must be the way the hexagon starfish led him. He put Xia Xiaochan into its door, then found a place to search for her. It must be like this. However, Han Fei suddenly braked after rushing a kilometer away. Han Fei suddenly stopped, and his face changed slightly. He perceived the half-mermaids. Besides, not only did he perceive the half-mermaids, but it seemed that the half-mermaids inside also perceived him. Swish, swish, swish. At this moment, Han Fei felt his blood freeze. In the shipwreck, 8 inferior manfish, 5 red demons, and 2 half-mermaids suddenly emerged. At this moment, the leading half-mermaid directly led the crowd and rushed in Han Fei's direction. Han Fei glanced at Little White. "I told you to look for Xia Xiaochan. Why did you bring her to the sea demon's nest?" But then, Han Fei found that something was wrong. Little White's perception couldn't be wrong. Was Xia Xiaochan caught by these sea demons? Unfortunately, he had no time to check what was in the shipwreck now. 15 sea demons suddenly emerged. No matter how arrogant he was, he didn't dare to stay. Immediately, Han Fei put away Little Black and Little White, attached to Little Gold, activated the 64-dimensional fish dragon dance, and rushed away. Han Fei was not running for his life. If Xia Xiaochan was caught by these sea demons, the only way to save her was to kill these sea demons first. If there were only 2 or 3 red demons, Han Fei thought he could catch them off guard and kill 1 or 2 first. But now, the other party had 2 half-mermaids and 5 red demons. If he guessed right, these red demons were all level 49 creatures. They should be at the same level as the 2 he had killed before. If they were not peak-level red demons, he wouldn't be afraid. But once they were peak-level red demons, their combat power couldn't be underestimated. Even if the red demons were much weaker than the half-mermaids, they were still comparable to ordinary peak-level hanging fishers. If he fought against 5 peak-level hanging fishers alone, even if he could win, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. While running, Han Fei took out the enhanced version of Poison God. There was no need to set up an array or use the infinity water at all, because those sea demons were chasing him. Therefore, their course of action was the same as his. He only needed to control the seawater, slightly control the enhanced version of Poison God to spread slowly, and they would naturally hit him. Han Fei didn't hesitate at all. He directly grabbed a kilogram of Poison God and laid it on his course of action. At the same time, he slowed down. After 2 minutes, Han Fei sensed that those sea demons passed through that area without any defense at all, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Third update. Asking for votes. It's already the 3rd update today. It's too hard for me. I just woke up and saw that it was already past 6, so I immediately rushed over to update. It's really busy during the new year, and I really don't have much time to write, so I've been writing at night. Reminder: be surprised and pay attention to rumors. Beware of profiteers who raise prices. Beware of scammers who make money for national disasters. End of this chapter. Chapter 7:15. In the process of escaping, Han Fei's speed was getting slower and slower. Han Fei couldn't help sighing. Chao Chiu, Chao Chiu. Don't be fooled by this fellow's foolishness. He was an extremely dangerous fellow. Something like the Poison God was simply a bug. If used well, it could greatly guarantee his survivability. When the sea demons passed through the area of the Poison God for less than 10 seconds, Han Fei stopped running. The distance between the 2 sides was only about 2,000 meters. When the 2 leading half-mermaids felt that something was wrong with them, Han Fei had already started to chase them. However, because the speed of the half-mermaids and red demons was too fast just now, Han Fei didn't feel anything wrong. Therefore, although he felt uncomfortable at this moment, he didn't find anything wrong with him. However, when Han Fei had turned around and rushed towards them, the 2 half-mermaids suddenly changed their expressions. At this time, if they still didn't find something wrong, they would be stupid. Hiss! Roar! Yeah! The 2 half-mermaids began to roar. But looking back, except for the 5 red demons, the inferior manfish had begun to hold their stomachs and vomit. While vomiting, they were a little manic and bombarded randomly. The 2 half-mermaids tried to run, but after running less than a kilometer, they felt that their stomachs were about to explode. It was not that they didn't want to run, but that they couldn't run at all. This poison was really terrifying. In such a short time, it had already drained a lot of their combat power. Roar! Accompanied by a roar, Han Fei sneered. None of you can escape today. The distance of more than 2,000 meters was covered in the blink of an eye. Han Fei had already used the draw technique, and a terrifying knife light shot out and appeared in front of one of the half-mermaids in an instant. Roar! White flames suddenly enveloped the half-mermaid. 3 sets of battle suits and a big shield flew out of this guy's body in a row. Crack, 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 clang. Han Fei was a little stunned. Why did this half-mermaid react so quickly? Wasn't it already deeply poisoned? However, although this half-mermaid blocked Han Fei's draw technique, it was still sent flying by Han Fei's knife and began to vomit and have diarrhea. The other half-mermaid also burst into white flames and took out a golden harpoon. Han Fei's pupils constricted. A top half-mermaid heavenly talent, Han Fei didn't expect to see a half-mermaid of this level here. However, even though he was a prodigy, an unknown substance began to flow out of his mouth. However, this half-mermaid seemed to still be able to fight. The golden harpoon in his hand burst the seawater. Spiritual energy and demonic chi surged out of the sea like dragons, and he dashed at Han Fei at the fastest speed. Whoosh! Han Fei put on a semi-divine battle suit, and the semi-divine golden seal in his hand turned into a giant seal phantom, slapping at this guy. Huh! I don't believe that you can still maintain your peak strength after swallowing the enhanced version of Poison God. Clang! The seawater exploded. Within a radius of 1,000 meters, raging waves surged and rippled. Han Fei was sent flying by the blow, and a trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. This time, he deliberately did not use the majestic mystic spell. It turned out that the strength of this half-mermaid heavenly talent had been reduced by at least 30% to 40%. Otherwise, he wouldn't have only been slightly injured by the opponent's full-strength blow. Tell me, where are the people you caught? Han Fei stomped and rushed at it again. The phantom of the big seal was in the air, the seawater was rolling on both sides, and the spiritual energy was like fire. In the dark bottom of the sea, there was a dazzling light. Kill! This half-mermaid only said one word, and a huge scorpion, with a terrifying speed, pierced the void with its tail and directly stabbed at him. Han Fei didn't expect the other party to have this move, so he directly blocked it with his battle suit. Bam! Han Fei was directly stabbed into the bottom of the sea. On the seabed, smoke and dust billowed, and it was turbid. The half-mermaid was very shocked. The battle suit on this person was so strong that it could resist his full-strength blow head-on. Wasn't it comparable to his golden battle suit? Puff! The half-mermaid only felt that his internal organs were rolling, and he couldn't control his body anymore. In the next second, a knife light suddenly appeared in front of him and swept past his neck. He activated the amulet, but it couldn't stop Han Fei. After all, this half-mermaid had no combat power left. The half-mermaid was extremely aggrieved at the moment of death. It was not that he couldn't fight, but that his combat power was declining every second. After 2 consecutive full-strength blows, he had no more power to fight. Han Fei hacked this half-mermaid with a knife, pulled off the golden battlesuit and golden harpoon, and threw them into Forge the Universe. With a thought, the infinity water came out. If this half-mermaid had an immortal seal, he would continue to poison him until he died. Not far away, the half-mermaid who had just been blown away summoned his companion spirit and was taking him to escape. Sacrificing punch. Han Fei didn't hold back anymore. The half-mermaid was poisoned, but the opponent's companion spirit was still intact, so he had to kill it. He punched out, and the scarlet fist mark shot out a dazzling light on the bottom of the sea with an indomitable momentum. Han Fei didn't pay any more attention to the half-mermaid because 5 red lights appeared in his vision. Majestic mystic spell. Han Fei took a mouthful of candle dragon blood, stepped on the coiled turtle array, and blocked the attack with the golden seal. He had recognized that the red spear was the life spear of a red demon, which was equivalent to a life-risking blow. Han Fei had already experienced the life-risking blow of a level 49 creature when he was on the skeleton shore. At that time, if it hadn't been for Chao Chio's life-saving fist mark that offset most of the power of the red spear, he might not have been able to easily block it. This time, there were a total of 5 life spears. It could be seen that these red demons knew they couldn't resist it anymore and tried their best to keep Han Fei here. Overlord. The semi-divine golden seal was bombarded out and smashed directly to the bottom of the sea. It was a pity that his seal combat skills were not good enough, so he couldn't block the life spear with his semi-divine weapon. At this time, the Overlord appeared, carrying a large shield in his hand, and 9 defense arrays burst out on the shield in a row. Crack! 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 After breaking 7 arrays in a row, the 5 life spears were blocked. The attack of the red demons was over. Han Fei's attack had arrived, and the draw technique had swept over, directly wiping out 2 red demons. On the other side, the half-mermaid was hit by the sacrificing punch, leaving a mark of 1 kilometer long on the seabed, causing smoke and dust to billow on the seabed. Han Fei waved his hand, and the golden seal returned to his hand with a swish. Then, Han Fei turned around and smashed it at a red demon who was still trying to escape. At the same time, Han Fei leaned forward and 200 blue sea wandering dragon daggers pierced out of his body, directly encircling the two red demons who had vomited so much that they couldn't even be recognized. Han Fei's mouth bulged as if he was rinsing his mouth, and then he spat out a large mouthful of blood. All of this took less than 5 breaths of time, and the infinity water was shaking. As soon as the half-mermaid heavenly talent came out, it was invaded by the strengthened version of Poison God and was no longer a threat. Fortunately, this half-mermaid heavenly talent didn't use the dying strike. Otherwise, he would have wasted a little more time. After dozens of minutes, after killing this half-mermaid, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp came out, and the 9-star chain directly buckled the red demons and half-mermaids that had been killed by him and quickly rushed to the inferior manfish ahead. In his perception, those inferior manfish were still 10 kilometers away. Their speed was not as fast as the half-mermaids and red demons. Besides, their poison resistance was not high at first glance. So, before they got here, they had already collapsed. When Han Fei arrived, only 3 of these inferior manfish were still resisting. The others had completely collapsed, their skin had cracked, and they were vomiting everything out of their mouths. With a thought in Han Fei's mind, the surrounding seawater rolled up, and the infinity water burst out, sweeping them away. In fact, he didn't particularly hate sea demons. There was no need to torture them. He could just kill them. At this point, all 15 sea demons were killed. Han Fei found a total of 7 sea-swallowing seashells. Those inferior manfish didn't even have a sea-swallowing seashell. Han Fei directly took their harpoons, as well as a set of golden battle suits and golden harpoons. As for their corpses, Han Fei didn't want any of these poison ones. Otherwise, what would he do? Pollute, forge the universe? Han Fei didn't look at any of the 7 sea-swallowing seashells. He swallowed several mouthfuls of candle dragon blood and quickly rushed in the direction of the shipwreck. Now it was a race against time. The battle here just now caused a lot of noise. Just a few hits on the seabed caused a lot of vibrations. Not to mention the vibrations caused by him and the half-mermaid heavenly talent fighting with all their strength twice. After a moment, Han Fei's perception swept every corner of the shipwreck, but he didn't find anyone. Han Fei went in, rummaged around, and found a rotten hall in the shipwreck where the sea demons were just now. Here, there were some half-eaten big fish, crabs, and other things. Obviously, they had eaten here just now. Sea demons are still sea demons. Even though they have cultivated and turned into a human form, they still eat raw food. Han Fei's face was full of disgust. There were no other creatures here. Han Fei transmitted his voice to the entire shipwreck. Master Hexagon Starfish, did you hear that? Did you use some kind of formation to hide yourself? I'm Han Fei, Master Hexagon Starfish. After calling a few times, Han Fei found that no one responded. With a flash between his eyebrows, Little Black and Little White appeared. Han Fei asked, "Daughter, is this the place? Your mommy isn't here. Are you in the wrong place?" Little White swam out of the ship. As soon as she swam out, Han Fei suddenly put away Little Black and Little White. 9 tails attached to him, with the golden seal in his left hand and the blood-drinking knife in his right hand. He was wearing a golden battle suit and the 6 spirit armor. It's you. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 716. Han Fei was caught up in the end. He thought this 6-star powerhouse had run far away, but he didn't expect that he would appear again. Thinking about it, it must have been attracted by the battle just now. Suemo didn't directly enter the sea. To be honest, he was really shocked. He had passed by this place just now. However, he sensed a group of sea demons, including a half-mermaid. As a peak-level hanging fisher, he didn't dare to fight them. However, when he came back, the sea demons were all gone. When he arrived at the place of the battle, he was dumbfounded. 2 half-mermaids, 5 red demons, and 8 inferior manfish. None of them survived. They were all killed. At first, he thought it was done by the people who were also sent to arrest Han Fei. However, When he entered the sea, he found that these sea demons were all poisoned. Their corpses were lying in the sea, and no creatures would eat them. At that time, he remembered the information that Han Fei was good at using poison. However, he met him at this moment. Han Fei stood at the bow of the ship, looking indifferent and saying, "Do you want to catch me?" Su Mo sweated. "Han Fei, it's not your business to find Xia Xiaochan alone." As early as the moment Xia Xiaochan disappeared, someone had already gone to find her. "You'd better go back with me. It's a big taboo to go to sea without permission. However, if you kill so many sea demons at once, you will definitely make up for your mistake. At that time, I can also speak for you." Han Fei sneered. "Make up for my mistake? Ha! Are they going to find Xia Xiaochan or catch her? Just based on the words of the two people from the Dark Hunter Legion?" Su Mo frowned. "Han Fei went to sea without permission. I'm afraid he doesn't plan to go back for the time being." Su Mo said, "No matter what the result is, won't we know when Xia Xiaochan goes back?" Han Fei said lightly, "Their ability to find people is not as good as mine." Su Mo was stunned. "No, some hidden fishers went to look for her." Han Fei trembled slightly, and then said angrily, F***CK? Does a hidden fisher want to kill Xia Xiaochan? Su Mo quickly shut up. He made a mistake and said, "No, they're just looking for someone. How can a hidden fisher attack Xia Xiaochan?" Han Fei smiled contemptuously. "I'll find my own girlfriend. I don't trust others. So, do you want to fight or let me go?" Su Mo swallowed slightly. If it was before, he would definitely dare to fight. However, after seeing the death of those sea demons just now, he would never fight Han Fei. This boy was only an intermediate hanging fisher. However, this strength was ridiculously strong. He had fought 15 people alone, and he had taken care of all of them. More importantly, he looked completely fine. How was he supposed to fight? Su Mo thought for a long time, but couldn't think of an answer. It wasn't good to leave, but it wasn't good to stay either. Han Fei said, "Just say that you've never met me. Even if I go back in the future, I won't tell anyone. I'm leaving. If I find you again, I won't rest until you die." Su Mo gritted his teeth, took off the fishing boat, and flew away. Are you kidding me? With the strength of this bastard, how could a hanging fisher defeat him? At least a hidden fisher should come to take him, right? Su Mo could feel Han Fei's fighting spirit. If he really fought, he would probably be the one to die. He didn't want to do such a thankless thing anymore. At least Su Mo could be sure that Han Fei was only guilty of going to sea without permission. However, Han Fei definitely didn't betray the human race. Otherwise, how could he have killed 15 sea demons in one breath? Thinking of those sea demons, Su Mo decided to take all the bodies back. Then, he would report to the higher-ups that he didn't find the person but found the battlefield. This fully proved that Han Fei was so strong that even if he found the body, he wouldn't be able to bring it back. This also indirectly proved that Han Fei didn't betray the human race, but was simply looking for someone. In this way, the higher-ups wouldn't send him, a peak-level hanging fisher, to look for him. As for whether Han Fei could come back or not, it had nothing to do with him. I'm staying comfortably on the Scattered Stars Island. Isn't it nice? It wasn't until Su Mo left his perception range that Han Fei secretly breathed a sigh of relief. A peak-level hanging fisher with 6 stars represented extremely strong strength. If this Su Mo's strength was average, he would at most have a 5-star rank. It would be impossible for him to reach 6 stars. If he had to fight him, it would probably take him a lot of effort. After all, he had just experienced a big battle and was a little tired. His internal injuries hadn't fully healed, and his combat power was probably only about 70% of his peak state. Seeing Su Mo leave, Han Fei didn't immediately release Little Black and Little White, although Little White seemed to want to continue the search. Han Fei knew that now was not the time to search. He had just killed a half-mermaid heavenly talent. That guy definitely had a life tablet. How could no one notice that a half-mermaid with a semi-divine weapon was killed? If Han Fei thought that no sea demons would come to investigate, he would really think that the sea demons were idiots. So, after thinking about it, Han Fei summoned Little Black and Little White. "Daughter, point me in a direction." Little White turned for a while and aimed at Han Fei's left. With a flash between Han Fei's eyebrows, he put away Little Black and Little White, rushed out of the sea, took out the wind god boat, and flew more than 3,000 kilometers away. Then he plunged into the water. With a flash, he entered Forge the Universe. Han Fei needed to recover. He cast a divine healing technique on himself and began to rummage through the 7 sea-swallowing seashells he had just obtained. First of all, in the sea-swallowing seashells of the 5 red demons, there were 100 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid each. Han Fei had already guessed this in his heart, so he was not surprised at all. At the same time, Han Fei found a demonization scroll, which was almost exactly the same as the previous one. Thinking about it, this thing should be a common commodity in the Sea Demon Society, not something that could be hoarded. In addition, in the sea-swallowing seashells of these red demons, he found a new sea demon combat skill called Basic Combat Skills of Mermaids. However, the display showed that the quality was spirit level. Han Fei didn't even look at it and threw it aside. However, to Han Fei's surprise, Han Fei found some high-quality pearls in the sea-swallowing seashells of these red demons. There were not many of these pearls. Including the 2 red demons he had killed before, there were less than 100,000 in total. Would they also use high-quality pearls as currency? Han Fei pondered for a while. Sea demons were born in the sea, so their ability to dig out pearls should be much better than that of humans. If high-quality pearls were currency, then these sea demons must be very rich, unless, for some reason, they didn't take their belongings with them. As for the rest, they were all ultra-quality materials, no special materials. Han Fei didn't check them one by one and directly threw them into Forge the Universe. When there was enough spiritual energy in the future, he would return to the Scattered Stars Island, and the misunderstanding would be resolved. Then he would go to the refining hall and earn a lot of points. After checking the sea-swallowing seashells of the red demons, the rest were naturally the sea-swallowing seashells of the 2 half-mermaids. Among them, in the sea-swallowing seashells of the heavenly talent half-mermaid, Han Fei found 1,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid and 2 sea demon combat skills. One was called Sea Spirit 3 Consecutive Stabs, demon level mid-quality. The other was called Sea King's Secret Technique, heaven level mid-quality. Han Fei was not interested in the Sea Spirit 3 Consecutive Stabs, mainly because its level was too low and he didn't know how to practice it. But the other, Sea King's Secret Technique, attracted Han Fei's attention. The Sea Demon's secret technique was not low level, so Han Fei naturally wanted to check it out. However, when he saw it, Han Fei frowned. It turned out that this so-called Sea King's secret technique was the reason why these half-mermaids burned with white flames when they fought. They actually used this method to summon the so-called Sea King's will. Therefore, the white flames were not flames at all, but a kind of will that came from nowhere. The sea demons believed that this kind of will was a gift from the king of the Sea Clan. After they prayed, the king in the sea gave them power. Han Fei was speechless. This secret technique could actually provide more than twice the combat power of the sea demons. And the side effects were surprisingly small, a bit similar to his majestic mystic spell. Just eating more and replenishing more energy could make up for it. No wonder any random half-mermaid would burn with white flames. It turns out that this thing is so powerful. But no matter how powerful it was, Han Fei found that it didn't seem to be useful to him. After all, this was aimed at the special body structure of the half-mermaids. In addition to the Sea King's secret technique, Han Ran was attracted by the more than 3,800 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, 1,200 caddies of spiritual spring, more than 30 mid-quality spiritual stones, and 12 high-quality spiritual stones. Wow, so rich? Han Fei swore that this was definitely the richest half-mermaid he had ever met. Han Fei's eyes were filled with jealousy when he saw this wealth. Why didn't the half-mermaid heavenly talents I met before have such wealth? Han Fei thought about it. It made sense. Before, they were either playing in competitions or exploring secret realms. Who would carry such wealth with them? So far, Han Fei had obtained 5,300 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, 2,100 caddies of spiritual spring, 33 mid-quality spiritual stones, 12 high-quality spiritual stones, and 120,000 high-quality pearls. And this was what he got in less than 5 hours at sea. Sure enough, the sea is better. Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 717. Han Fei was not a fool. He got 5,300 caddies of spirit awakening fluid from this batch of sea demons, which certainly aroused his curiosity. Did the sea demons really have so much spirit awakening fluid? Not necessarily. This batch of sea demons should have just robbed the undersea chimney, so even the red demons had spirit awakening fluid. When Luren Kwang called him, he said he was going to deliver supplies. What did it mean that supplies needed to be delivered? It meant that the quantity of these supplies must be very large. So, Han Fei had a guess. The amount of spirit awakening fluid produced by the undersea chimney this time might exceed his imagination, possibly reaching tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of caddies. In addition to the spirit awakening fluid, there might be other things. Otherwise, it couldn't be explained why 2 half-mermaids and a group of red demons and inferior manfish could have so much spirit awakening fluid. However, no matter how large the amount of spirit awakening fluid was, Han Fei planned to invest in himself first this time. First of all, because there were too few mid-quality and high-quality spiritual stones, there were only about 7 million points of spiritual energy. The 2,100 caddies of spiritual spring was even less, only about 2 million points of spiritual energy. Therefore, the spiritual energy he got this time was actually less than 10 million points. On the contrary, there was too much spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei felt that it might be enough to push him to the level of an intermediate hanging fisher. Looking at the spirit awakening fluid in front of him, Han Fei took a deep breath and immediately opened his mouth and began to drink it crazily. He urgently needed to become stronger now. There couldn't be only one batch of sea demons here. The battle had just ended, and he might have only encountered a small group of sea demons. There were even more that he hadn't met yet, but they should be in the nearby seas. Even though he had used the strengthened version of God of Poison in that small poke just now, he had still lost nearly 30% of his combat strength in a situation where he was not paying attention. If the number of sea demons doubled, or there were a few more half-mermaids, the result might be different. Gulp! Gulp! As soon as the spirit awakening fluid entered his body, it immediately disappeared without a trace, as if turning into nothingness. He didn't know whether it dissipated in his limbs and bones, or turned into some kind of power and existed in his body in disguise. When Han Fei drank more than 200 caddies, the black light appeared again. This time, Han Fei didn't take it seriously at all. This thing had appeared from the very beginning, but it disappeared in a flash and did not affect him at all. Even the demon purification pot did not react, which meant that it should not be a big problem. The upper limit of his spiritual energy was slowly increasing. Han Fei felt that his body gradually turned from the feeling of being bathed in the spring breeze and drizzle to numbness. His bones, flesh, veins, everything seemed to be glowing. When Han Fei poured about 600 caddies of spirit awakening fluid in a row, he broke the hurdle of level 45. However, this was not a breakthrough in cultivation. Therefore, it didn't show anything except that the upper limit of his spiritual energy had reached 12,000 points. When Han Fei injected more than 2,100 kilograms of spiritual energy into his body, he broke the minor barrier of level 46, and his upper limit of spiritual energy reached 13,000 points. When Han Fei poured more than 4,800 kilograms, he suddenly realized that the effect of the spirit awakening fluid was slowing down rapidly. Because of the suppression of his realm, the spirit awakening fluid couldn't be improved for the time being. What made Han Fei realize was that something black seemed to be stuck in the bottleneck of his breakthrough. That thing was preventing his strength from continuing to soar. What is this? Han Fei frowned. Isn't this thing appearing a little too frequently? What's in my body? If it's something bad, why doesn't the demon purification pot react at all? Han Fei stopped swallowing and drinking. Maybe he needed to consolidate his strength now. He didn't know if swallowing spirit awakening fluid could improve his strength indefinitely. If it could, then whoever had spirit awakening fluid would become stronger and stronger, to the point where no one could defeat him or her. Besides, it was said that the spirit awakening fluid itself was actually used to tap one's potential. Wasn't it a bit wrong to crazily use spirit awakening fluid to improve his strength like this? However, Han Fei hadn't confirmed it, so he wasn't sure. He looked at the data, and the information popped up. Owner Han Fei, level greater than 46, intermediate hanging fisher, spiritual energy 530-0556-13999, spiritual power 1801-1801, perception range greater than 17,999 meters, spiritual heritage level 5, high quality spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 38. Main art, void breaking technique, volume 4 of void fishing, demon level, divine quality. Han Fei's eyes suddenly narrowed. Did I break the bottleneck of my spiritual power? I didn't feel anything. Immediately, Han Fei was overjoyed and took out 20 level 2 soul crystals. These were collected by Luren Quang for him. This guy seemed to have spent a lot of effort to collect 56 level 2 soul crystals. Although it was still far from the 5 million points of credit that Han Fei gave him, Luren Quang must have put in a lot of effort. After half an hour, Han Fei slowly opened his eyes and frowned. The effect of the spiritual power breakthrough this time was not so obvious. It seemed to be caused by drinking too much spirit awakening fluid. It might also be that his perception also had a bottleneck. This caused his mental strength to stop at 1852 points, and it stagnated. And his perception range just reached 19,999 meters, and then it couldn't go any further. He also reached a bottleneck. However, Han Fei smiled. Even if I reached a bottleneck, so what? His current range of perception had already reached 20 kilometers, which was 40 kilometers. With the range of his senses, he could almost explore the entire skeleton shore by standing on it. Han Fei didn't intend to save the remaining 500 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid. Now he had to increase his strength. Since he couldn't do it himself, he would use Little Black and Little White. 500 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid was fed to Little Black and Little White by Han Fei. Little White's body was already emitting a holy brilliance. But this brilliance only lasted for a while and then disappeared. He didn't even reach level 39. It seems that the production of spirit awakening fluid should be more than I thought. Without tens of thousands of kilograms, it seems a bit unrealistic to increase my strength. This was only true for people like him, who had a lot of opportunities. If others spent points to buy it, how long would it take for them to buy enough spirit awakening fluid? After confirming that nearly an hour had passed, Han Fei appeared directly in the sea. As soon as he came out, Han Fei released his perception. With this perception, he directly found 2 inferior manfish within his perception range. These 2 inferior manfish seemed to be patrolling and seemed to be investigating. Sure enough, I've been discovered. Han Fei thought of something. He must have been discovered when he killed those sea demons. Even though he ran more than 3,000 kilometers away, there were still inferior manfish patrolling over. He set up a stealth array and a breath-concealing array for himself. And then with a flash between his eyebrows, Little Black and Little White appeared. Little Black, go kill them. If it was a red demon, Han Fei definitely wouldn't let Little Black kill them. But if it was just an inferior manfish, Han Fei wanted to see the current strength of Little Black and Little White. Even if Little Black couldn't kill them at once, he could still kill them. Although this place would soon be discovered after killing the inferior manfish, Han Fei had to do this. In the water, Little White's tracking ability was unparalleled. But outside the sea, Little White's tracking ability would be greatly reduced. After all, it was a fish. Although it could still survive out of the water, its tracking ability would be reduced. Besides, Unless it floated to a height of 1,000 meters or even higher, it couldn't really avoid the perception of the sea demons. Otherwise, they weren't fools. Who wouldn't know how to sense it? The perception range of a half-mermaid was not small at all. Imagine, at an altitude of thousands of meters, how could he let Little White track him? The two inferior manfish were only less than 10 kilometers away from each other. Little Black pounced on the closest one, and Han-Fei slowly moved to the middle of the two so that he could catch up with it later. The inferior manfish that could appear in the deep sea were actually not weak. It was just that their demonic heritage was relatively low, so their perception was not good, so they were relatively stupid. The inferior manfish that Little Black was staring at leaned forward and was swimming slowly in the water. From time to time, it scratched its arms and shoulders with its long webbed claws. Because the inferior manfish had not fully evolved, there were fin-like fins on both sides of its arms, legs, and back, which were sharp and long, so Little Black had to circle around to find a good place to bite. So Little Black chose the neck. In its view, that place was the most vulnerable. The inferior manfish seemed to feel something was wrong and suddenly looked back, but it saw nothing. But when it looked back, it suddenly felt the water ripples in front of it. It was about to make a sound, but its neck was bitten off by a big bloody mouth. It was bitten off, not bitten. Even Han-Fei was a little shocked by Little Black's sharp teeth. At this moment, he aimed at the most vulnerable part of the inferior manfish, so he killed it with one blow. Han-Fei couldn't help but sigh. Little Black was a natural hunter, a hunter more terrifying than human cultivators. If Little Black could reach level 49 or level 50, he would probably be a real ocean killer. Not to mention an inferior manfish. Even a half-mermaid might be able to kill a hidden fisher-level powerhouse with a single bite. On this side, the inferior manfish was killed, and Han-Fei saw that the other one didn't respond. Han-Fei immediately sneered. It seemed that the inferior manfish's perception range was not large, definitely not within 5,000 meters. In this case, Han-Fei didn't have to worry so much. After Little Black killed the second inferior manfish, Han-Fei didn't even bother to find a sea-swallowing seashell and asked Little White to lead the way. However, leading the way this time gave Han-Fei a headache. Almost every 30 to 50 kilometers, he would meet an inferior manfish. After killing more than 20 inferior manfish in a row, suddenly, a shrill roar spread hundreds of kilometers. Damn it! Han-Fei was discovered. After swimming for less than 800 kilometers, he was discovered. Han-Fei shouted, "Little White, full speed ahead." Third, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 718. This time, Han-Fei didn't even bother to hide and directly began to rush. And Little White's speed, although not as fast as Little Gold's, could still match Han-Fei's speed without the majestic mystic spell. Han-Fei, Little Black, and Little White rushed forward side by side, leaving 3 water explosion patterns behind them. Because they were too fast, they left a trail of thousands of meters in the water, lasting for a long time. It was precisely because Han-Fei didn't hide his position anymore that his position was discovered immediately. So, the first to appear were dozens of inferior manfish. Then, more and more inferior manfish appeared, and some appeared directly in front of Han-Fei. "Since you forced me to kill, then I'll kill you." Every time Han-Fei slashed with the blood-drinking knife in his hand, a flickering knife light would fall in front of an inferior manfish with seawater that could break through the barrier. With one slash, an extremely strong, invincible fighting intent appeared, and in the blink of an eye, an inferior manfish would be cut down. However, when Han-Fei waved the knife for the first time, his heart skipped a beat. Did the invincible fighting intent weaken? No, it was because he had become stronger. At the beginning, Olbai told him that the invincible fighting intent he comprehended did not belong to the category of knife intent, but was just an invincible will that he comprehended himself. As his strength grew stronger, this invincible will couldn't keep up with the pace of the improvement of his strength. At that time, because Han-Fei didn't know how to comprehend knife intent, he didn't take it seriously. He thought to himself, temporarily invincible is okay. But now, When his strength broke through to the level of an intermediate hanging fisher, the invincible fighting intent didn't strengthen with the improvement of his realm. It could be seen that Han Fei's invincible fighting intent had stagnated. Although the inferior manfish still couldn't block his knife, no progress was no progress. After killing more than 20 inferior manfish, Han Fei finally admitted this fact. In his perception, Han Fei seemed to be unable to continue to break through. From all directions, including in front of him, there were endless inferior manfish pouncing at him. Han Fei suddenly stopped, turned his hand, and the blood-drinking knife disappeared into his body. With a flash between his eyebrows, he took back Little Black and Little White. Han Fei stood proudly in the dark sea, and a dazzling golden light gradually appeared on his fists. At this moment, the blood in Han Fei's body surged, and countless pictures appeared in his mind. That was the scene when he first cultivated the art of invincibility. At this moment, when he found that the invincible fighting will had weakened, it appeared again. As soon as this picture appeared, Han Fei's heart surged, as if a ferocious beast was awakening. If the invincible fighting intent doesn't improve, I'll fight until I'm invincible again. Han Fei knew that a fishing net had probably been laid out in a radius of thousands of kilometers. They were determined to catch him. Hiss! Roar! Han Fei was wearing a semi-divine battle suit. When the first inferior manfish came, a dazzling golden light blasted out, and a powerful and invincible belief gathered on his fist mark. Boom! Like a cannonball, the inferior manfish drew a white mark in the sea and directly crashed to the bottom of the sea 1,000 meters away. Boom! The bottom of the sea was shaking, smoke was rolling, and rocks were breaking. Then, from a long distance away, spears of spiritual energy broke through the air. Balls of spiritual energy were launched at Han Fei like water pressure cannons, and the harpoons were stabbed in the seawater, emitting intense cold light. Boom, boom, boom! The art of invincibility was fully activated. With Han Fei's body as the center, the dazzling golden fist marks overflowed from his body, scattering in all directions. In the dark seawater, cold light, water pressure cannons, golden fist marks, barrier-breaking watermarks, impact ripples. Battle effects emerged one after another, and ripples overlapped. None of the inferior manfish who were almost the same level as Han Fei, or even slightly stronger, could take a punch from Han Fei. The broken bodies of the inferior manfish were constantly being punched on the bottom of the sea. The roar resounded for dozens of kilometers on the bottom of the sea. The inferior manfish were roaring fiercely, rushing forward fearlessly. In the distance, the red demons and half-mermaids were rushing over quickly. When the first red demon appeared on the battlefield, within a radius of 3,000 meters from where Han Fei was, almost all the inferior manfish were lying on the ground. Their bodies were broken and they were vomiting blood. Some of their internal organs were broken, some of their heads were bleeding, and some were even directly blown into pieces. This was the third time Han Fei had drunk candle dragon blood. Every time, at least 100 or more inferior manfish would fall to the bottom of the sea forever. Not only at the bottom of the sea, but the battle fluctuations and soaring killing intent here even attracted the attention of some human masters. Perhaps those humans were still thousands of kilometers away. Some noticed the abnormal movements of the inferior manfish, and some sensed that there was a battle taking place through the weak vibration frequency of the seawater. Anyway, no matter how they discovered it, 5 or 6 people had already begun to rush in the direction where Han Fei was. After a while, some people met in the sky. "Brother, which side is fighting?" "I don't know. Were you also attracted here?" Someone appeared in the sky. "Who the F*** CK is so powerful as to directly fight in the sea?" Someone stood on the bow of the ship, holding a battle bow, and shot an arrow thousands of meters into the sea. He said lightly, "Someone is fighting. Go and help." When these people arrived at the battlefield, they sensed it and were immediately shocked. An intermediate hanging fisher? On the bottom of the sea, Han Fei was fighting 4 red demons alone. Yes, 4. At this moment, Han Fei had activated the majestic mystic spell, and his body was glowing with golden light. He was tossing and turning under the continuous attacks of the 4 red demons. Golden fist marks bombarded the opponent's body like muffled thunder. Every time he struck, waves that were dozens of meters tall would surge out. Sensing that there were humans coming, Han Fei said to them via voice transmission, "Everyone, can I help you kill some inferior manfish?" Everyone was stunned. They had already sensed that no less than 300 inferior manfish had died on the seabed. Damn, was this all done by this intermediate hanging fisher? At this time, someone came from the sky. Seeing this scene, his expression changed several times. The newcomer said to him via voice transmission, "Han Fei, come back to the Scattered Stars Island with us before the half-mermaid arrive." Han Fei slapped the golden seal in his hand directly on the forehead of a red demon, knocking it to the ground. With a backhand golden fist mark, a crab rolled more than a dozen times in the water. Han Fei's eyes were cold. "Are you also here to catch me?" A few of them were already hunting at sea. At this time, a 6-star slaughterer had already jumped into the sea, attracting the attacks of dozens of inferior manfish. Someone asked the people who had just come, "This boy is called Han Fei. Why do you want to catch such a fierce heavenly talent? What did he do?" The newcomer had also fused with his spiritual beast, jumped into the water, and started fighting. While fighting, he said, Han Fei broke into the Dark Hunter Legion and went to the sea to look for someone. Someone said with a weird look, "An intermediate hanging fisher broke into the Dark Hunter Legion? Are you kidding me?" The man said, "He broke into the Dark Hunter Legion with the door-carrying marshal. Do you think he can break into it?" The group of people was speechless. Who on earth is this boy? He broke into the Dark Hunter Legion with the door-carrying marshal. Someone shouted, "Forget about breaking into the Dark Hunter Legion. Hey, Han Fei, why are you still fighting down there? Run away before the strong enemy arrives." Han Fei responded, "I'm practicing my combat skills. I'll be done in a moment." Han Fei was really practicing his combat skills. He hadn't mastered the art of invincibility yet. Since the cultivation of the steps into the sea, he felt that the art of invincibility had stagnated, and he couldn't make any progress. At this moment, Han Fei ignored an attack coming from behind and punched a red demon directly in front of him. There seemed to be a spiral energy around his fist. With a bang, he punched a red demon directly in front of him. A terrifying power suddenly exploded, and half of the red demon's body was directly dented. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. What kind of intermediate hanging fisher is this? Damn it, he's even stronger than a peak-level hanging fisher. Plus the 2 people who came to capture Han Fei, there were a total of 8 human powerhouses. Among these 8 people, only one had 5 stars, and the others all had 6 stars. And who else could move freely on the sea except for slaughterers? This was the title that came after completing the 100 slaughter, and it represented strength. Even the remaining 5-star powerhouses were probably trying to break through to the 6-star rank. The 8 people in the sea were almost equivalent to the combat power of 8 peak-level hanging fishers. For a time, the inferior manfish could only be slaughtered. However, in his perception, Han Fei found that a half-mermaid had already appeared. At this moment, it was sprinting towards him. Huh! Han Fei grabbed a harpoon with one hand, stretched out his hand, and the fist mark directly blew up the head of a red demon. With a wave of his hand, the golden seal was taken back, and a big seal phantom slapped on the chest of another red demon. Boom! Han Fei gritted his teeth. He glanced at the 8 people who came to help, especially at the 2 who came to capture him, and decided to continue fighting. Of the 4 red demons, only one was left. Han Fei punched dozens of times in a row, bombarding it like a madman. The energy in his body poured out and directly blasted 7 or 8 holes in the associated spirit of the red demon. Boom! When the last golden fist mark burst out, a strange power seemed to be merging with the fist mark. Swish! The fist mark blasted through the seawater, and in the next second, the red demon directly exploded. Han Fei looked down at his fist and seemed to feel a little bit better. Someone was shocked and couldn't help but say, "What a brave warrior." The 4th chapter. Just 4 chapters today. Please vote. I didn't count the number of chapters before. The estimated number of chapters this month is more than 400,000. It's not slow, it's definitely not slow. In the previous era of online literature, there were no such things as 10,000 chapters a day. Blood Red started this era into this chapter. Chapter 719. Han Fei grabbed another ball of candle dragon blood and stuffed it into his mouth. This was the 5th time he had drunk candle dragon blood. He finally knew why the unknown place was so dangerous. How could it not be dangerous? The outer sea was almost the back garden of the sea demons, and the inferior manfish were almost endless. When someone perceived the half-mermaids, he immediately said to Han Fei, "Boy, are you crazy? Are you practicing your combat skills here? Do you know that if you wait any longer, you won't be able to leave when there are too many half-mermaids?" Han Fei thought quickly. He miscalculated the number of sea demons, and some people had already arrived. If he continued to practice the art of invincibility, it might raise doubts. Immediately, Han Fei rushed straight to the sea like a torpedo from bottom to top. Han Fei said, "Thank you for your help. By the way, I will not return to the Scattered Stars Island." The 2 6-star powerhouses flew directly to Han Fei. "Han Fei, it's not your place to find someone." Han Fei sneered. "If you had the ability, you wouldn't have let Xia Xiaochan run away. It's not that I look down on you, but no one can find her except me." One of them said, "The waist tag has the ability to locate you." Han Fei asked, "Can you locate me now?" As soon as Han Fei said this, the man was speechless. Yes, they couldn't locate Han Fei. In fact, they were not fools. Then, if he lost his waist tag, how would he be able to locate him? The other people who came to help all looked weird. F***CK. Should we intervene or not? Another person who came to capture Han Fei said, "Everyone, please take action and catch Han Fei. Don't worry, this guy is not guilty of a serious crime. He just lost his mind in an emergency." Han Fei said angrily, "I'm very sober. Don't force me to fight you." Everyone was speechless. "There are 8 of us. Are we afraid of you fighting us?" BM, BM, BM. When they confronted each other in the air, 3 half-mermaids jumped out of the water. In the distance, 2 half-mermaids also jumped out of the water. Coming out with them were 5 or 6 red demons and hundreds of inferior manfish. Everyone's face changed. The 6 killers were not going to participate in this matter. On the one hand, they had witnessed Han Fei's slaughter. This kind of genius must have an extraordinary background. It wouldn't do him any good to offend him. Moreover, this kid had insulted the law enforcement team right in front of them. With such a fiery temper, was there a need for him to go up and beat him? What if he bore a grudge against me in the future? Immediately, someone shouted, "Let's go. Don't wait for them to form a blockade. It'll be too late if we don't leave now." These people directly controlled the fishing boat to soar into the sky. The fishing boat accelerated. Seeing that the others had left, the 2 members of the law enforcement group couldn't help but curse inwardly, "A bunch of fish demons." However, it was not a good time to catch Han Fei, so the 2 of them immediately controlled the fishing boat and prepared to escape first. However, when their fishing boats suddenly soared into the sky, the half-mermaids and red demons on the sea suddenly flew up. Han Fei was stunned by this scene. F***CK. They can fly too? Yes, Han Fei saw that there seemed to be a water skateboard under the feet of the half-mermaid and the red demon, which looked like a surfboard. They actually flew on this skateboard. Of course, those inferior manfish didn't have this ability. They could only run on the sea, condensing spiritual energy spears in their hands and shooting at Han Fei. The people of the law enforcement group shouted, "Han Fei, let's escape from the sea demons first. You don't know anything. How can you set foot in the outer sea now?" With that, the 2 of them rushed away. However, while they were rushing away, there were also half-mermaids chasing them, but Han Fei didn't care about them. 5 half-mermaids were flying on skateboards and rushing towards him. Among them, several had even used the Sea King's secret technique. Han Fei spat, "Surfing against my wind god boat." In the next moment, the wind god boat rushed out in a red light and disappeared into the sky. Bam! Like a thunderclap, A cone-shaped cloud wrapped the wind god boat, broke through the sound barrier in the blink of an eye, and flashed away like a meteor across the sky. Those half-mermaids watched this group of people fly away in all directions and let out unwilling roars. At this moment, Han Fei really understood why hanging fishers were called hanging fishers. As long as he could fly in the sky, the sea demons could do nothing to him. This was the invincible position. Half-mermaids dominated the sea, but they couldn't fly until they became hidden fishers. Although they could condense skateboards by some means, they couldn't fly. Although the speed of the skateboard was also fast, it was much slower than human fishing boats. This was why hanging fishers were so confident to patrol in the air. However, there were also flaws. If a hanging fisher wanted to wander in the outer sea of the unknown place, he had to rely on fishing boats. Once the fishing boat was damaged and hanging fishers couldn't fly, if they didn't have excellent concealment skills, there would only be one result: being surrounded and killed by fish tides and sea demons. In fact, Han Fei only flew thousands of kilometers away before he jumped into the water again. "Daughter, can you still feel your mommy's position?" Because the pursuit couldn't be sustained, when the trace disappeared, it was difficult for Little White to find it for a while. After a full half an hour, Little White seemed to have reconfirmed the direction. Han Fei walked out of the array, glanced around, and guessed in his heart, if Xia Xiaochan ran into the deep sea by herself, it would be almost impossible for her to break through the sea demon's back garden. Therefore, Han Fei still believed that Xia Xiaochan should be in the gate of the hexagon starfish at this moment. It was a pity that he didn't fully stimulate the fighting intent of the art of invincibility just now, which was why he was in a dilemma now. Since his fighting spirit had been exhausted, he probably wouldn't be able to activate it in a short time. So, Han Fei set up a stealth array for himself and Little White, and then slowly swam on the bottom of the sea. Han Fei didn't kill the inferior manfish. He tried it once just now. If he was really besieged, it was almost impossible to break out of the encirclement by force. Since he couldn't be reckless, he could only use his wits. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. If only he could become a fish, then he wouldn't have to be so careful not to be discovered by the sea demons. However, Han Fei immediately burst into tears. If he became a fish, wouldn't he become a sea demon? He'd better be a human being. If he became a sea demon, he would be the enemy of all mankind. Han Fei slowly moved, and it took him a full 8 hours to completely walk out of the sea demon's encirclement. During this period, Han Fei entered Forge the Universe several times to avoid being tracked. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. I'm still too weak. If only I could have 10,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid. If only I could have a few 100 million more points of spiritual energy. 2 days later, chomp! Han Fei swallowed a spiritual fruit in 2 bites. In the past 2 days, Han Fei had almost never taken the spiritual fruit away from his hand. One was to heal his wounds, and the other was to store spiritual energy. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't directly use the spiritual fruit as spiritual energy, which was too wasteful. Han Fei occasionally fed spiritual energy to Little White. After all, unlike him, Little White first had to deal with the conflicts of spiritual energy caused by different spiritual fruits. Only after stabilizing these could the spiritual energy be completely his. In addition, in the past 2 days, Han Fei had encountered more than once powerful exotic creatures and tried to catch them twice. One time, he was discovered and ran away. The other time, he attracted an inferior manfish, so he could only run away. Now, Han Fei watched a big crab with a whole body like jade running past him, but he couldn't move, because it was with this big crab that he avoided the half-mermaid above his head. Son of AB Asterisk T-Sich, it's been 2 days. Why haven't you given up yet? These sea demons are too stubborn, aren't they? Didn't I just kill one of your squads? When the half-mermaid above his head swam away, Han Fei slowly breathed a sigh of relief and asked Little White to continue to lead the way. However, after swimming for more than 300 kilometers, Little White stopped swimming. Han Fei took a closer look and found that he had run to a place full of sea leaping grass. This place was covered with seaweed, and Han Fei perceived that 800 meters away from him, there was a green octopus hiding in the seaweed. He saw colorful sea urchins lying on the seaweed, and some stones were actually crabs in disguise. In such a place, Han Fei suddenly had an idea. He found something different. There was something wrong with the flow of spiritual energy here. The amount of spiritual energy contained in the sea rattan grass has decreased. No, a lot of spiritual energy has dissipated. Why doesn't the sea rattan grass absorb it? Huh, a defensive array? No, it's a maze. Although Han Fei wasn't as proficient in arrays now, it was much better than before. He found that someone had set up a maze here by extracting the spiritual energy of the sea rattan grass. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up. Good Lord, I finally found it. Chapter 720. Han Fei didn't destroy the maze. In his eyes, the eyes of true vision, finally found an extremely inconspicuous array, according to the way the spiritual energy flowed. When Han Fei stood in the array, the array itself didn't respond. Han Fei grinned. The hexagon starfish was indeed very good at setting up arrays. Ordinary people would think that this array was set up a long time ago and had long been abandoned if there was no abnormality after finding the array. But Xiaobai was here, so Han Fei knew that the hexagon starfish must be below. After half an hour, Han Fei discovered that this was a stacked array. The outer maze was just a camouflage, and the real array turned out to be the location of those sea vine grasses. When Han Fei smashed a sea vine grass, another array was exposed. Swish! Han Fei appeared directly in a secret realm from the sea vine grasses. To Han Fei's surprise, this secret realm was full of spiritual energy. There was even a spiritual spring gathering, and there were many purple crystals protruding from the ground, as if he had walked into a prehistoric underground cave. Master Hexagon, I'm here. Han Fei perceived and found that in this small secret realm with a radius of less than 3,000 meters, a piece of sand was shaking and a tentacle emerged from the ground. Han Fei's tightened heart was immediately relaxed. Sure enough, they were here. Fortunately, nothing happened. The hexagon starfish climbed out of the sand and shouted to Han Fei, I'm going to retire here. I'm not going to go out. Han Fei was speechless. Why are you going to retire? If this array is broken, you will be caught like a turtle in a jar. At that time, you'll be dead. Where is Xia Xiaochan? Tell her to come out. Is she hurt? Han Fei glanced at the hexagon starfish and suddenly said, Huh, you actually broke through, and you even broke through 3 levels in a row? Before Han Fei asked in detail, he saw the hexagon starfish's body stiffen, and then with a swish, it wanted to run to the entrance of the cave. Han Fei was already holding a stone in his hand. Don't you want your essence blood? However, the smile on Han Fei's face had disappeared. Why is the hexagon starfish running? The hexagon starfish, however, said pitifully, I didn't lose her, but she left me behind. It has nothing to do with starfish. Han Fei's face had completely darkened. Come here. Tell me, where is Xia Xiaochan? Why aren't you two together? The hexagon starfish floated in the water resignedly. She turned into a crab and ran away. What? Han Fei was dumbfounded. What do you mean by turning into a crab and running away? The hexagon starfish nodded. She turned into a big crab and ran away. Xia Xiaochan turned into a big crab? Seeing the hexagon starfish's confirmation, Han Fei frowned. Xia Xiaochan must have turned herself into a crab with the metamorphosis water. Han Fei walked over and dragged the hexagon starfish to him. Tell me, what happened in the undersea chimney? What could the hexagon starfish do? It didn't know how Han Fei found it. Anyway, it was scared out of its wits and ran to this place without knowing why. The hexagon starfish said, It's a fight. They go out to fight every day. This time, they went to grab the spirit awakening fluid, and then they fought. Han Fei was stunned. Tell me, what do you mean by fighting? Who fought who? The hexagon starfish said, Xia Xiaochan first fought with fish, then with mermaids, and then with humans. Then, Xia Xiaochan went crazy and fought everyone she saw. Fortunately, she didn't fight starfish. Otherwise, I would have been a dead starfish now. Han Fei's face was black. It's normal to fight with fish and mermaids. But why did she suddenly fight with others? The hexagon starfish's big eyes rolled. There was a woman who seemed to have sprinkled something on Xia Xiaochan, and then she went crazy. Han Fei's heart trembled. Tell me, which woman? What did she sprinkle on Xia Xiaochan? Han Fei had a bad feeling in his heart. Xia Xiaochan's illness was not caused by the spirit awakening fluid, but by someone else? The first person that came to Han Fei's mind was the woman named Shui Ran. She was Xia Xiaochan's captain and one of the team leaders this time. She was most likely to attack Xia Xiaochan. The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes and said, "Women all look the same. I can't tell them apart." Han Fei said coldly, "I'll give you another chance to organize your words. Which woman was it?" The hexagon starfish was anxious. "I don't know her. I only know that the woman, she had a finger cut off by Xia Xiaochan." What? Suddenly, around Han Fei's body, a wave of water shook outward. Yangying? Han Fei suddenly remembered that when he broke into the Dark Hunter Legion a few days ago, only Gong Wenhai and Yangying were left in Xia Xiaochan's team, except for Captain Shui Ran. At that time, Yangying raised her hand to show Han Fei that her little finger was cut off by Xia Xiaochan. At first, Han Fei thought that Gong Wenhai slandered Xia Xiaochan because he couldn't get her, but Gong Wenhai didn't like her. But now it seemed that it wasn't the case at all. Yangying had framed Xia Xiaochan. But weren't they all from the Dark Hunter Legion? Why did she frame Xia Xiaochan? Han Fei immediately asked. Then do you know why that woman attacked you? The starfish immediately rolled its eyes. I don't know. Han Fei had been staring at the hexagon starfish. He had been with the hexagon starfish for a long time. Once the starfish tried to think, its eyes would roll. At this moment, its big eyes were spinning faster than a top. Immediately, Han Fei pinched its essence blood. Master Hexagon, a lying starfish is not a good starfish. The hexagon starfish was almost crying. Well, maybe Xia Xiaochan robbed some spirit awakening fluid and I helped her put it away. Han Fei frowned. It was extremely unscientific that the hexagon starfish had leveled up by 3 levels in a row. As mysterious creatures, Little Black and Little White had drunk a lot of spirit awakening fluid, but they hadn't reached level 40 yet. However, the hexagon starfish suddenly jumped from level 43 to level 46. This speed was even faster than a rocket. Whether it was Little Gold, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, or Little Fatty, after level 38, hundreds of kilograms of spirit awakening fluid couldn't help them improve. The hexagon starfish was level 43 before. How much spirit awakening fluid did this guy swallow to level 46? Han Fei looked awkward. You mean that woman was jealous that Xia Xiaochan robbed a lot of spirit awakening fluid, so she attacked her? The hexagon starfish shrugged. I don't know. Anyway, she just did it. A cold smile appeared on the corner of Han Fei's mouth. He just didn't like Gong Wenhai and thought that if he met him at sea in the future, he would kill that guy. But now, Yangying was also on his death list, and she ranked first. However, Han Fei had no time to deal with Yangying now. That woman probably had only 2 choices. One was to pray that he couldn't find Xia Xiaochan or that she died outside, and the other was to slip away while he was not on the Scattered Stars Island. At this moment, Han Fei's top priority was to continue looking for Xia Xiaochan. Since the hexagon starfish said that Xia Xiaochan turned into a crab and ran away, it meant that her condition should be stable. Han Fei asked, "How did you get here? Did Xia Xiaochan turn into a crab and bring you here? When did Xia Xiaochan stop going crazy?" This time, the hexagon starfish answered very smoothly. It said, "She just had an attack for a while. After fighting a lot, she passed out. After she passed out, I put her into a gate. Then, she was chased by a group of sea demons for a long time, and then I came here." Han Fei was surprised. "You brought her here? Then when did she turn into a crab and run away?" The hexagon starfish said, "After she woke up, she turned into a crab. In the form of a crab, she stayed here for a day and said that she wanted to go out and have a look. Starfish certainly didn't want to go out. Then, she never came back." "No, wait a minute. You said that after Xia Xiaochan woke up, she turned into a crab? It's so safe here. Why did she turn into a crab? The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes. I don't know. Han Fei really wanted to slap the hexagon starfish. What the hell do you know? Drink this spirit awakening fluid. You don't know anything else. Han Fei immediately stared at the hexagon starfish. Hand over the spirit awakening fluid. The hexagon starfish's eyes stiffened, and it immediately rolled its eyes. Starfish has already drunk it. There's nothing left. Han Fei sneered. Then open the door and let me in and have a look. Of course, the hexagon starfish refused. However, Han Fei grabbed it with one hand. Do you want to become a pentagon starfish? Hey, the spirit awakening fluid was snatched by Xia Xiaochan. No matter how much I give you, it's just for temporary safekeeping. But you secretly drank tens of thousands of caddies, and now you want to keep it all to yourself? Starfish didn't drink tens of thousands of caddies. Han Fei asked, if it's not tens of thousands of caddies, can you break through 3 levels in a row? The hexagon starfish's big eyes kept rolling. Starfish only drank more than 10,000 caddies. Damn it. Han Fei really wanted to slap this guy to death. Damn it. Only drank more than 10,000 caddies? Don't you think it's enough? Han Fei said coldly, I'll count to 3. Are you going to take it or not? Chapter 721. The hexagon starfish compromised. It knew that the spirit awakening fluid couldn't be stored anymore, but it didn't expect Han Fei to come so soon. Otherwise, if it was given a few more days, it might be able to break through to level 47. At that time, it would definitely become a powerful starfish. The hexagon starfish took out 2,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei was furious. Are you kidding me? Give it all to me. The hexagon starfish said aggrievedly. There are only 2,000 caddies left. Han Fei sneered. Dishonest starfish, do you think you have too many claws? You drank more than 10,000 caddies, and I didn't care about it. Now you tell me that you only have 2,000 caddies left? Under Han Fei's repeated coercion, Han Fei even went to the hexagon starfish sect and finally confirmed that there was no more left. In total, he dug out 2,900 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei was speechless. If he had come one day later, the spirit awakening fluid would have been gone. This starfish was really good at drinking. However, this also indirectly confirmed Han Fei's guess that an undersea chimney must contain a lot of spirit awakening fluid. Xia Xiaochan alone grabbed more than 20,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. How terrifying was this? More than 20,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. More than 100 million points of credit were almost drunk by the hexagon starfish. Han Fei asked, when did Xia Xiaochan leave? The hexagon starfish nodded. Yesterday. How much spirit awakening fluid did she take with her? The hexagon starfish rolled his eyes. She didn't take a caddy with her. She said she left it all to me. So, this spirit awakening fluid belongs to the starfish. Han Fei sneered. I'll confiscate the rest. The hexagon starfish, with a flash between Han Fei's eyebrows, Little Black and Little White appeared. Without saying a word, Han Fei directly threw 400 caddies of spirit awakening fluid at them. As a result, the luster on Little White and Little Black became stronger, but they still failed to break through. So Han Fei threw another 500 caddies of spirit awakening fluid to them. This time, when Little White swallowed 300 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, he broke through and finally reached level 39. Han Fei's eyes lit up. Under the eager gaze of the hexagon starfish, the remaining 2,200 caddies of spirit awakening fluid were all fed to Little White. This made Little White look even more holy and pure. However, he still couldn't break through to the next level, as if he was stuck at a bottleneck. The hexagon starfish said, This should be a major bottleneck. I don't think the spirit awakening fluid is enough. Ha! Han Fei slapped the hexagon starfish to the ground. Don't be greedy. Will you die if you keep more? Han Fei felt it was a pity. He wondered how much spirit awakening fluid was needed for a contractual spiritual beast to make a breakthrough. However, as mysterious creatures, Little Black and Little White were extremely powerful. so they might need more spirit awakening fluid. Seeing that he couldn't make a breakthrough, he gave up. After all, it was only his third day at sea. No matter how rich the resources in the ocean were, it was impossible to become fat in a day or two. Han Fei believed that even if Little Black and Little White hadn't made a breakthrough yet, they wouldn't be far from it. He would find a way to get more spirit awakening fluid for these two little guys to make breakthroughs first. As for Little Fatty and the others, they could just wait. Unless he could get another 10,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid, he probably wouldn't be able to make it. Han Fei grabbed the hexagon starfish and pressed it on his shoulder. Let's go find Xia Xiaochan. The hexagon starfish was about to cry. I don't want to go. It's too dangerous outside. I think I can stay here. Han Fei said fiercely, Bullsh asterisk T. If you stay here, you will be dug out by others sooner or later. At this moment, Han Fei was full of doubts. Xia Xiaochan didn't even take a kilogram of spirit awakening fluid with her and turned into a crab. Where did she go? Since she had escaped, if Xia Xiaochan wanted to return to the Scattered Stars Island, she could easily do so. After all, Xia Xiaochan also had a wind god boat. Besides, if Xia Xiaochan wanted to go back, she couldn't go without the hexagon starfish. And why did Xia Xiaochan leave the spirit awakening fluid to the hexagon starfish? She knew that Little White had the ability to track, so Han Fei would definitely chase after her if he knew that she didn't return to the Scattered Stars Island. Therefore, Xia Xiaochan probably wanted to leave this batch of spirit awakening fluid to him, right? Immediately, Han Fei suddenly whipped the hexagon starfish. When Xia Xiaochan left, did she ask you to give this batch of spirit awakening fluid to me? The hexagon starfish clenched his claws and rolled his big eyes. No, she said it was for me. Seeing the hexagon starfish's reaction, Han Fei had already understood. He sneered. Okay, dishonest starfish, the labor contract will be renewed for 10 years. Just wait to sell yourself. The hexagon starfish felt wronged. She really left it to me. Han Fei didn't listen to its explanation and just said lightly, if you can still find her, you can drink this bit of spirit awakening fluid and I won't ask you for more. If you can't find her, I tell you, you are doomed. Han Fei knew that something must have happened to Xia Xiaochan. He didn't know what exactly happened, but something must have happened. Because of this, she chose not to return to the Scattered Stars Island. However, although Xia Xiaochan was not weak, the outer domain of the Scattered Stars Island was full of dangers. Only Han Fei himself knew how hard it had been during the 3 days he had been out. It was many times more dangerous than the level 3 fishery. Little White was looking for a direction and swimming slowly. Han Fei was not in a hurry. Now that Xia Xiaochan was cured, no one could catch her. With the all things water in her body, Xia Xiaochan could become anything she wanted. Since Xia Xiaochan's safety was not a big problem, Han Fei was not so anxious. He planned to find her while honing himself. However, Han Fei didn't know that on the Scattered Stars Island, many people had already exploded. The first to explode was Zhang Xuanyu. He flew up and kicked Luren Quang. You damn fatty, why didn't you call me? Are you King my brother? Why did you just let Han Fei go to the outer sea alone? I'm so pissed off. Luren Quang felt wronged. Even if we go, the outer sea is indeed too big a target. Luo Xiaobai had just returned and was the calmest one at this moment. Don't worry, it shouldn't be a big problem. At least Senior Brother Da Shuai said that Han Fei killed a lot of sea demons, which is all credit. The charges of breaking into the Dark Hunter Legion and leaving the island should be offset. Zhang Xuanyu said angrily. The question is Xia Xiaochan all right? Everyone's heart sank. They really didn't know. In the Dark Hunter Legion, according to Gong Wenhai and Yang Ying's hints, it seemed that Xia Xiaochan killed someone and fled. However, Luo Xiaobai and the others certainly didn't believe it. Luo Xiaobai said, keep an eye on Gong Wenhai, Yang Ying, and Xue Ran. If one of them maliciously spreads this rumor, he will be the most suspicious. The Twisted Jungle. Jiang Qin frowned. Do you want me to look for them? Old Jiang shook his head. No need. The life tablets of the 5 of them are now with me, and they are all fine. As for why they don't come back, what if they don't want to come back? Jiang Qin said, but it's too dangerous. Their current strength is not enough to dominate the outer sea of the Scattered Stars Island. Old Jiang sneered. Don't worry, they are all cunning. If something happens, they won't just wait to die. Besides, the outer sea is so big. Even if you go looking for them in person, it won't be easy for you to find them. Jiang Qin rolled her eyes. Can't you find them yourself? Old Jiang shook his head again. You can't find them, but I can. Unless they are killed by the dying strike. At that time, I will know where they are. Besides, if I go out, Shueishenqi won't just sit by and do nothing. Scattered Stars Prison. Zhang Teng's face was dark, and he looked at the jailers. Still no news about that kid? A jailer smiled bitterly. Boss, that kind of heavenly talent can't be judged by common sense. A guy who can hone his combat skills amidst hundreds and thousands of sea demons is simply a lunatic. Zhang Teng spat. F***CK. I knew that everyone in the Thug Academy is a troublemaker. Now that the dragon has returned to the sea, there's no way to find him. Withdraw all the people. Withdraw. The jailers looked at each other. Are we not going to chase him? Zhang Teng said hatefully. If we can't find him, how can we chase him? Does the Scattered Stars prison look so free? Central city of the Scattered Stars Island. Inside a certain palace, a gentle-looking young man was looking at a huge sea map. On this sea map, the Scattered Stars Island was just a palm-sized place. On the map, there were no less than 1,000 places marked in a mess. Someone respectfully knelt on one knee. Commander, Xia Xiaochan and Han Fei are gone. This person was the famous supreme commander of the Scattered Stars Island, Shueishenqi. However, Shueishenqi's face didn't change at all, and his eyes were still staring at the sea map. After a long time, he said lightly, Okay, for old Zhang's sake, I'll let this matter go. By the way, where is Tangu? Commander, Tangu wants to go to sea, but he has been intercepted. Shueishenqi nodded. Let him go. Just keep an eye on him and don't let him leave the island. After a long time, Shueishenqi murmured, Han Fei, Jiang Daqian, the Thug Academy. Han Guanshu, what on earth are you planning? Everyone is in the trap, but what is the history of Xia Xiaochan and Tangu? You have been hiding for more than 30 years. What's your purpose? The third chapter, asking for votes, adding chapters, later, excluding dinner time, update at 7 or 8 o'clock into this chapter. Chapter 722. 3 days later, Han Fei had gone 30,000 kilometers deep into the open sea, and the creatures he encountered were getting stronger and stronger. First of all, there were more and more exotic creatures. This made Han Fei exclaim. In the past, encountering an exotic creature in the level 3 fishery was like winning the lottery. But nowadays, exotic creatures were running everywhere. Almost every 1,000 miles, and sometimes even every few hundred miles, there would be one. Sometimes, he could even encounter them in groups. However, Han Fei hadn't found a creature with a higher quality than exotic creatures so far. It seemed that the exotic creatures were already the best here. After a few days, the number of inferior manfish and other sea demons that were searching for Han Fei had decreased a lot. Today, Han Fei swam for a long time, but didn't find a single inferior manfish. Did the inferior manfish go to a gathering? Or did they go to worship the sea god? This doesn't make sense. The hexagon starfish said, the nearby creatures have become stronger. Let's go back to the island. Han Fei scoffed. Don't you find that little white is swimming slower and slower now? She must have found Xia Xiaochan's location. Let's find her first. About half an hour later, Han Fei's eyes suddenly lit up. He sensed a canyon. It was very deep, and Little White was heading in that direction. However, when Han Fei came to this canyon, his face changed. The spiritual energy here was chaotic, and there was blood everywhere. It should have just been a battle. Han Fei had no time to think about it, and rushed into the canyon. The seawater here was quite turbid, which should be the dust and sand on the bottom of the sea, rolled up in the battle. Besides, above the canyon, there were several cliffs, and sand flowed into the canyon like waterfalls, which could be called a sand waterfall. Before he reached the bottom of the canyon, Han Fei's perception had swept all the areas within 40 kilometers. He found that the bottom of the canyon was like a desert. There were more than 20 inferior manfish and red demons scattered, and 3 half-mermaids died on the spot. This was just above the Sand Sea. Dozens of meters below the Sand Sea, Han Fei also found several red demons' corpses. Going deeper, Han Fei couldn't perceive them easily. Although his perception range was large, it was extremely difficult to sense something that needed to penetrate matter. Penetrating the sandy ground for dozens of meters was still manageable. If there was a huge space underground that wasn't sealed, it would be easy. However, if there was sand and rocks all the way down, it would be extremely difficult. For example, at this moment, Han Fei's perception penetrated no more than 20 meters into the sea of sand, and he felt that the penetration was exponentially more difficult. Han Fei didn't think that Xia Xiaochan would hide so deeply, so he rushed all the way down. When Han Fei passed by a red demon, he saw a harpoon lying not far away and couldn't help but wonder. He patted it casually, and a sea-swallowing seashell was slapped out. Why didn't you put it away? Is there nothing in it? With a thought, Han Fei scanned the sea-swallowing seashell, only to find that there were still a few kilograms of spirit-awakening fluid and more than 30 ultra-quality materials in it. They were quite valuable. Han Fei glanced at Little White. "Daughter, are you sure Xia Xiaochan is here?" Han Fei frowned. This doesn't make sense. Xia Xiaochan was the same as him. They were both greedy people. It didn't make sense that after killing so many red demons and half-mermaids, she didn't even want their sea-swallowing seashells. The inferior manfish Han Fei just took out 10 sea-swallowing seashells from the red demons and half-mermaids. Among them, the half-mermaids also contributed 510 kilograms of spirit-awakening fluid, more than 5,000 kilograms of spiritual spring, and more than 30 mid-quality and low-quality spiritual stones. This time, it had been several days since the battle for the undersea chimney. Besides, it was too far away from the undersea chimney, so it was understandable that there was little spirit-awakening fluid. However, Han Fei wasn't happy at all. Xia Xiaochan killed the sea demons without taking their sea-swallowing seashells. There were only 2 possibilities. First, Xia Xiaochan had no time or opportunity to take these sea-swallowing seashells at that time. That meant that there were still sea demons chasing her. If it was the first possibility, Han Fei was confident that Xia Xiaochan could avoid it. But if it was the second possibility, Han Fei thought for a while. What if these sea demons and sea-swallowing seashells were all left by Xia Xiaochan? Han Fei knew that Xia Xiaochan didn't want the spirit-awakening fluid. That was because if she used the spirit-awakening fluid, Xia Xiaochan wouldn't be able to suppress her realm and would easily get sick. However, if these sea demons were really left by Xia Xiaochan, then Xia Xiaochan must have known that he was chasing her. Besides, she also knew that he was nearby. Otherwise, she wouldn't have grasped the timing so well and let him finish the job. It had been less than half an hour since these sea demons died. If he chased them now, he should be able to catch up with them. Han Fei immediately touched Little White's head. "Let's keep chasing." Han Fei didn't need to think about it. If so many sea demons died at once, they would definitely be alarmed. If it was just the inferior manfish and red demons, it would be fine, but there were even half-mermaids here. It was hard to say whether they had life tablets or not. After all, Han Fei didn't know the living environment of sea demons. Did they have a rear base? Did they also have a sea demon city? Han Fei didn't know. If they did, the half-mermaids should be considered heavenly talents and should have life tablets. Otherwise, when he killed more than a dozen sea demons a few days ago, he wouldn't have been caught. This time, Han Fei didn't slow down but rushed all the way, sprinting with Little White again. However, after rushing for more than 500 kilometers, they encountered 2 half-mermaids and 3 red demons. As for the inferior manfish, they didn't see any of them. F***CK. Han Fei cursed secretly. "I just want to find them in peace." Han Fei said to them via voice transmission, "Don't get in the way. I'm not interested in fighting you." However, the half-mermaids didn't care about this. They roared, "Kill!" Han Fei's eyes turned cold, and he activated the majestic mystic spell. At this time, he was not interested in honing the art of invincibility, so he killed them directly so that he could continue to chase Xia Xiaochan. little fatty and little gold attached to him, and he slashed at a red demon with the draw technique. Although the red demon's reaction was extremely fast, its battle suit and harpoon were broken. It was not even qualified to block Han Fei's blow. After all, Han Fei was no longer what he used to be. The strength of an intermediate peak-level hanging fisher was not much different from that of an advanced or even peak-level hanging fisher. Besides, the red demon was not a peak-level red demon, so it was natural that it was cut in half. Holding the golden seal, Han Fei collided head-on with a half-mermaid. At the moment of the collision, a weird smile appeared on his face. Within a radius of 300 meters, the infinity water turned into knives and swept over. The next moment, the 10,000 knives in one burst out. Infinity water plus the 10,000 knives in one. There were really knives everywhere. He didn't give these sea demons a chance to escape at all. White flames ignited on the half-mermaid's bodies. Among them, a half-mermaid discovered the horror of Han Fei and tried to escape. In the end, a small golden seal was thrown at him. The terrifying power directly bombarded him to the seabed. Smoke and dust filled the air in an instant, and with the explosion of Han Fei's golden fist mark, these 2 half-mermaids and 3 red demons were all killed in less than 10 minutes. Putting away their harpoons and sea-swallowing seashells, Han Fei continued to rush forward. However, after chasing for less than 100 kilometers, Little White suddenly stopped and then looked at Han Fei in confusion. Han Fei asked, "What's the matter, daughter? Is this the place?" Han Fei looked around. This was an ordinary seabed, full of seabed sand, and there were not many plants around. Except for some reefs on the seabed, there was nothing else. But the next moment, Little White responded, Xia Xiaochan's aura disappeared. Disappeared? Han Fei couldn't believe it. What method did Xia Xiaochan use? Even Xiao Bai couldn't catch up to her? However, Han Fei couldn't stop. There had been 2 battles here, and if there were no accidents, other sea demons would come after a while. Han Fei immediately said to the hexagon starfish, "Open the door. I'll go in." The hexagon starfish was surprised. "Huh? Starfish, don't run by yourself." Han Fei scolded, "Find a place, set up an array, and hide." When Han Fei came out again, the inferior manfish appeared in his perception again. Yes, the sea demons were alert again. This made it 10 times more difficult for him to find Xia Xiaochan. As a result, the search process was back to square one again. One day later, Little White found the direction where Xia Xiaochan was again. Han Fei searched for her for more than half a month. During this period, Han Fei finally confirmed one thing. Xia Xiaochan was King playing hide-and-seek with him. Every time he was about to find her, Han Fei could always find that there had been a battle. A large number of half-mermaids and red demons were killed or wounded, and their sea-swallowing seashells and weapons were left to him. This kind of thing happened almost every 3 days. Why is this happening? Han Fei was confused. He had no idea what Xia Xiaochan's purpose was. The same thing happened. The sea demons were also confused. Every few days, a batch of sea demons would die, and every few days, another batch would die, and no one would be able to find them. In a certain underwater mountain range, a half-mermaid said coldly, "This must be the track of human beings. They want to disturb our rear camp. This time, 12 sea demons will lead the team. Dig her out for me." Okay, that's all for today. Take a break. I'll continue to write tomorrow's chapter. Since you can't go out during the new year, take a rest. It seems that many schools have delayed classes for 10 days. Well, read more and sleep more. Into this chapter. Chapter 723. In the past half a month, Han Fei had collected a lot of good things. He used to eat spiritual fruits every day, but now he didn't even need to eat spiritual fruits. Just picking up garbage behind Xia Xiaochan, he had picked up a huge amount of spiritual spring and a small number of spiritual stones. Han Fei roughly calculated. Plus the spiritual energy he had stored before and the ones he picked up recently, he had 70 million points of spiritual energy. Among them, the spiritual spring alone accounted for 28 million points of spiritual energy, nearly 30,000 caddies. By eating spiritual fruits, he had 24 million points of spiritual energy. And with his own spiritual stones and the spiritual stones he picked up, he had 20 million points of spiritual energy in total. In this way, he was not far from accumulating 100 million points of spiritual energy. However, in addition to the spiritual spring, Han Fei picked up very little spirit awakening fluid. In the past half a month, he had picked up less than 1,500 caddies in total after 7 or 8 times. The more he picked up, the less he got. In the last 2 times, he didn't even see 1 caddy. Han Fei had every reason to believe that those sea demons had become smart. Now when he went out, he either drank up the precious spirit awakening fluid or didn't take it with him. Han Fei thought, it's unlikely that they didn't take it with them. Who would leave such a precious thing at home? Besides, whether the sea demons had a home or not was still a problem. Therefore, there was an 80% chance that they drank it themselves. Han Fei stuffed a spiritual fruit into his mouth. He had to continue to eat spiritual fruits. Now he didn't even have 100 million points of spiritual energy directly available. If he needed to deduce a cultivation technique, it wouldn't even be enough. In fact, this time Han Fei came out with the idea of deducing a cultivation technique before going back. Suddenly, Han Fei felt dozens of surging waves shuttling from the front at an incredible speed. Han Fei subconsciously withdrew his perception and immediately cast a concealment array and a breath concealing array on himself. Han Fei shouted, "Master Hexagon, hurry up, set up an array, and hide us. There's no time to get into the door." The hexagon starfish shuddered and covered Han Fei with a concealment array. Han Fei threw out a series of concealment arrays, illusion water arrays, and a series of arrays that could quickly hide him. The hexagon starfish asked, "What's wrong?" Han Fei said, "Don't transmit your voice and don't move." A moment later, Han Fei sensed that the sea demons above his head were launching serial missiles. No, they were much faster than missiles. It was like the tail feathers of an airplane as it flew across the sky. There were hundreds of them. Han Fei was stunned. What's going on? Humans are at war with the sea demons? Han Fei didn't dare to release his perception. If he was noticed, it was almost impossible for him to escape unless he entered Forge the Universe. However, while Han Fei was watching this scene, a half-mermaid above suddenly stopped. A perception came over, and he quickly lowered his head, ready to enter Forge the Universe at any time. If worse came to worst, he could take Mr. Hexagon Starfish with him. Given the current situation, there was no way they could win. Those half-mermaids seemed to be extremely strong, definitely more than level 50. A half-mermaid asked, "What's wrong? Is there something wrong?" Feeling the perception sweeping down, he could only hope that the illusion array of the hexagon starfish would work and not be discovered by these sea monsters. Otherwise, if he hid and forged the universe, he didn't know when he could come out. At this moment, at most 700 or 800 meters away from Han Fei, a sandstone shook. Immediately, a spear of spiritual energy shot down, and Han Fei saw a crab was directly pierced and exploded. Above, the half-mermaid who stopped said, "It's nothing. Maybe I was too suspicious." When the sea monsters rushed out again, Han Fei glanced at the hexagon starfish and then shook his head gently. The hexagon starfish nodded, indicating that it understood. Han Fei stood where he was for almost half an hour, and suddenly a half-mermaid came down from the sea. His perception quickly scanned this area, and after waiting for a few minutes, he really ran away. After another while, Han Fei felt that there should be no third search, so he said to the hexagon starfish via voice transmission, "Let's slow down and not rush around. I feel that we seem to have found the sea monster's nest." The hexagon starfish asked, "Why did Xia Xiaochan run to the sea monster's nest? Why don't we go back first? She will definitely go back by herself." Han Fei said, "Shut up. Now we are invisible. We may be hundreds of thousands of kilometers deep in the sea, and we can't even tell north from south. Do you think it's easy to go back? Keep looking." 3 hours later, the way Little White led became more and more strange. Han Fei saw a mountain range in the distance, and occasionally some inferior man-fish passed over his head. The number of marine plants in the vicinity began to increase, but the number of living creatures decreased, and the shoals of fish were even rarer. Han Fei immediately said, "Master Hexagon, something is wrong. I feel that we may have really come to the sea monster's base camp." The marine creatures didn't dare to approach, and the sea monsters frequently appeared here. Just now, the hundreds of half-mermaids at once must have slipped out from here. Master Hexagon's eyes kept rolling. "Then what should we do? Let's run. We can't beat the sea monster's base camp." Han Fei snorted. "Even if we can't beat them, we have to go there. No, we have to dig through the ground." Han Fei spread out his perception. Although there were inferior manfish within 40 kilometers, they couldn't detect him. Han Fei kicked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. "Dig a hole. The deeper, the better. Don't hammer, just dig." Digging a hole on the bottom of the sea was actually relatively simple. Generally, the soil on the bottom of the sea was relatively loose, and a nine-tailed mantis shrimp could easily dig dozens of meters deep. Han Fei followed it to collect the soil, then sealed the hole, and asked the hexagon starfish to set up one array after another in the hole. The hexagon starfish asked, "Can it work?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes, Little White, show the way." Little White was on the nine-tailed mantis shrimp's head at this moment. Wherever Little White went, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp would dig. Although it was a little slow, Han Fei felt that he would rather be slow than take risks. But he didn't understand why Xia Xiaochan went to the sea monster's base camp. She must not have been caught by the sea monsters. But Han Fei didn't think so. Xia Xiaochan had been playing hide-and-seek with him for so long and asked him to clean up the battlefield. There was no reason that she would be caught. If she wasn't caught, she must have a reason to go to the sea monster's base camp. Digging more than 500 meters underground, it became more and more difficult. Although he hadn't dug to the mantle layer yet, there were already thick rocks. Han Fei took a look. At this depth, if he dug into the belly of the mountain, he shouldn't be found. He dug for a full 6 hours. Suddenly, Little Black, who had been following Han Fei, jumped out. In the muddy soil, he picked up a spiritual stone. Han Fei was speechless. "Wait, where did you pick it up?" This was a low-quality spiritual stone, containing 11,022 points of spiritual energy. But although it was a low-quality spiritual stone, it was still a spiritual stone. "Where did Little White lead the nine-tailed mantis shrimp to?" Han Fei said happily. "Excuse me, where did you dig?" Han Fei went up and took it, turned it over, and dug out another spiritual stone, which made Han Fei's eyelids twitch. "Wow, did you dig a spiritual stone mine?" He scanned with his perception and found that his perception could only go dozens of meters ahead. "Are you kidding me? My perception range of 40 kilometers can only go dozens of meters?" However, in these dozens of meters, Han Fei perceived more than a dozen low-quality spiritual stones. At that time, Han Fei was quite calm. If he picked up every single piece of the mountain, would he collapse the mountain? Han Fei had done this before. When he was in the level 1 fishery, Han Fei had collapsed the mine. If he collapsed the base of the sea demons, would he have a chance to run out alive? "No, I can't just leave them here." Han Fei couldn't refuse the spiritual stones when they were right in front of him. Just how much did he regard money as dirt? However, Han Fei didn't directly stuff them into Forge the Universe. Instead, he took out a big box from Forge the Universe. He picked up every piece he saw and asked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp to pull the box forward. Han Fei murmured, "As long as the spiritual energy doesn't disperse, it shouldn't collapse, right?" As a result, Han Fei dug deeper and deeper. When the nine-tailed mantis shrimp dug out layers of rocks, Han Fei found that he couldn't perceive anything above. He found that his perception was completely blocked, and he was trapped in the belly of the mountain. Boom! At this moment, as soon as Han Fei picked up a high-quality spiritual stone, the road he had dug before collapsed. Han Fei. The hexagon starfish. The hexagon starfish asked, "Did you trap us in the stone pile?" Han Fei lowered his head and looked at the big box in his arms. "I don't think I dug much. Less than 100 yuan. There isn't even a piece of top-grade spirit stone. How did it collapse?" The hexagon starfish asked, The problem now is, how do we get out? Han Fei scratched his head. I can't perceive anything above. Do you think they can perceive us?